Yay, hello.
Hello, everyone, if you're here.
So, like, Netflix, right,
Yeah.
has, like, 2 Muppet movies and not any of the good ones. But if I want to watch fucking Coneheads...
Do they have Muppet Coneheads?
No.
Do they have Muppet Coneheads Christmas?
No. Nothing good.
You're not getting it.
Do they have Muppets Coneheads Escape from New York?
That would be good, but they don't have that.
Oh. Hey, John. Hey, Ash. And yes, the answer is always donate to Palestinian support groups. That's right. That's absolutely right. So we're going to be talking about stuff today. Hi, everyone. We're going to let people roll in, give it a few moments, as one would, do.
I have 0 viewers, so John and Ash are not actually here.
It's pretty crazy. Like, I don't know how that works. I have no idea.
For me, it says 9.
Oh, okay.
I hope yours is right.
Hi, John.
If you're here, say hi, I guess.
Mine also now says 9.
Okay.
Yeah, Amazon doesn't think that you're worthy.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, now it says 10. Thanks. Okay.
There we go. That's good.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Hey, Doc.
So howdy, y'all.
I'm currently having a meltdown. Did I spell Bae correctly, or is that the wrong spelling?
No, that's correct. BAE is correct.
Yeah, okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why suddenly I was like, that's not right. The word couch.
Yeah. COUCH.
Never looks right. Ever.
Huh.
The spelling of it always looks wrong, and I don't know why.
Start spelling it COWCH.
Cow.
Couch.
Couch.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Wait, is it ouch?
COUCH.
It's ouch with a C.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's ouch with a C. That's right.
It's
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I cannot remember the spelling of words correctly. Like, I can spell it right without even thinking about it, but every time I look at it, it looks wrong.
I am so aware right now that this slide, like slasher body there, is like a placeholder for Pyramid Head. Like
maybe
it has like that energy. That this has that energy. Yeah.
I'm super excited that in the current zine we didn't have to balderize anything. We didn't have to file serial numbers off.
No.
We could literally just use real monsters from horror movies because all of that era was before copyright.
Yeah.
Or at least modern copyright.
Yeah.
So that was really exciting.
Did you guys see my Christmas present from my oldest daughter? Did anybody see that?
It's your Twitter header, right?
It is my Twitter header now, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
She drew really pretty pictures for everyone.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Mena's is really good. It's the wrench from Flatpak done with the delete this, the best time to delete this guy poses.
Yeah. I read it as like Newt from
Pacific Rim.
But in Always Sunny, it's a very similar physical posture.
Yeah, sure.
Use material older than Mickey Mouse. I mean, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you about my Mickey Mouse plan in a moment. But,
we're going to jail.
For my Christmas present, the oldest drew me characters from Yakuza Like a Dragon, but if they were Hello Kitty characters. And they're really good. I'll share them later if anyone cares.
We have to get Tina to explain the quote, though. That's the thing that's
making
me crazy.
And it's got a really weird quote on it. But that's very much our child. She's something. She's definitely something.
Yakuza like a Hello Kitty. Yeah, that's right.
Yes. Like a kitty. So, let's see. What was I going to say? So, everyone, yes, she is amazing. It's really, really absurd how amazing she is. Hi, everyone. We're doing Nuts and Bolts tonight.
Yeah.
Which is our newish show. We've done a couple of them so far, and they're really fun. So I think that we will keep doing them. Today
And
is
there's a slideshow in case you guys have missed that.
yeah. Well, we've done 3 of them. Two of them
Thank
have.
you. Thank you, Liv. Thank you for allowing us to keep making this show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Philomena did the slideshow for me. I did the outline for it, and she put them into slides, and they're really cool. And I'm saying that having not seen all of them yet. I didn't get a chance to look at all of them, but I assume they're all good.
Megas, thank you so much for logging in and signing up, subscribing again.
Yeah, absolutely. We love that.
Hey.
So, we're talking about 2 things today. The first of which is the sort of the nuts of the evening, and that is what do we do when media is harmful? I think this is an interesting topic right now, and it's particularly topical because we have Wonder Woman 1984 or Wonder Woman 84 in theaters and homes right now, and it's sparked some discussion, so I wanted to talk about that a little. And then the second thing that we're going to be talking about today, the bulk of our thing, is how to convert your game to Fate.
Yeah.
It's like we're not gonna go into everything about it, obviously, because we're only gonna have a couple hours to do so. But I wanted to go over all of the basics of how I would convert a game to Fate. And I know Francita is trying to convert a game to Fate right now. So I feel like maybe it would help her. And if she has any questions about that, she can pop them out. Also, y'all can too. It's just she has a microphone.
Absolutely.
I mean, you guys might have microphones too, but they're not connected to us in any which way, shape, or form. So everyone here probably knows us. I'm Liv. This is Mena. This
Hi.
is Francita. Mena.
Hey.
I said hi.
But it was in the middle of my introducing Francita. So, hi, Mena.
Hi.
This is Mena. She did the slides.
I did the slides.
Yeah. And then Francita, hi.
Hi.
She didn't do the slides.
No, I didn't do anything. I
did the art.
did so little that I actually just remembered that we were doing this like an hour ago.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I knew we had a stream, but I didn't remember what it was about.
Oh.
But more than a little of your art is in here already, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, like this guy right here. This is Francita's
yeah.
work. Yeah. She built him. He's cute. So,
I just made him in Photoshop. Like, Mina really created him.
well, I mean, yeah, she gave you the ideas, and this was actually one of the ones that took us the most. Like, I think there were like 4 iterations of it. So it was a pretty good one.
My internal vision was too strong. Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So, as the basic update of things go, how is everyone? Like, everyone's good. Everything's good. Everything's cool. Yeah.
Good.
We just had Christmas. It was pretty fucking cool, I guess.
Yeah.
And we are just about finished with our next zine, which will come out probably at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
I don't see why not. And that one is The Dirty 30s.
That's right.
It's about I Hunt in the 1930s, which is after the Great Depression, pre-World War II.
Right.
Really.
No, not after.
During. Well, during. No, it is actually. It is. The Depression really happened at the end of the 20s, and this is the ramifications of it.
No.
This is the Great Compression.
Liv.
What?
Stop. I'm right. You're wrong. I'm not going to have this argument with you.
Okay.
I did all the research for the damn book. I know what I'm talking about.
When was the Depression?
Okay. In 1929, there was the major stock market fall where like people jumped out of buildings and everything, and that triggers the Great Depression.
Oh yeah.
So it's in the 30s.
Yeah.
After 1929.
Oh. Okay.
She's about to get fired, y'all, right here, live on camera.
Please say you were wrong. Just admit it.
What? Why would I say I was wrong? I'm wrong. Okay.
Because you were.
It's a Christmas fucking miracle.
What even?
Anyway,
I wrote an entire book on this, and you're telling me I'm wrong.
She's infuriating y'all.
Okay, Tina, you're no longer allowed to ask Liv for help with history. Okay.
I wrote a whole thing about the Great Compression just now. It was like 3 paragraphs.
That's not a thing.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
it's
also, you're an expert because you wrote a paragraph.
3 paragraphs.
3 paragraphs.
3. Oh, yeah. That definitely is like.
And I'm pretty sure that one of them had to do with wizards, not actually about the Great Compression.
No.
No, the Great Compression is an interesting concept, but it didn't get a lot of attention because it's just a minor thing. Yeah, no, I mean you're correct. I was just giving you shit.
Ah, okay, good. All right, sure. Nice cover. I was just fucking with you. Yeah, okay. Anyway.
What?
We're doing that book, and it'll cover like the Okie migration to California. It'll cover FDR's new deal.
Yeah, the New Deal.
The New Deal, literally.
Or at least the sort of the results of the New Deal.
Right. And we worked in some fun supernatural stuff where like a lot of World War I vets that came home were werewolves.
Yeah.
So like when what's his name? Hoover goes and attacks all of the soldiers who were like begging for their money. They were actually going out there with silver bullets to shoot down the werewolves because they knew.
Yeah.
All sorts of fun stuff like that just added to make it, a good hunter setting. I think there's a lot of fun stuff in there.
Yeah, and it's eminently playable. There's like 4 hunter groups.
Yeah.
They're not fully fleshed out the way that the kinks are, but they do have like a group stunt each and stuff. It's really fun. I did a job generator. Sort of. It's a weird mutation of a job generator. But it's really, I think it's really good. Let's see. There's the hunter groups. There's a whole bunch of new stunts.
Yeah.
There's like sort of a take on what you do with skills and stuff. We may or may not do that in the other books because it'll get a little monotonous at a certain point, but we'll see. And we did monsters. And my favorite thing about that is that, and I already mentioned this, but 3 of the 4 monsters in there are existing movie monsters.
Yeah.
They're because the public domain. Thank God for the public domain. So that's really exciting. I think it's a really good book. We are currently working on Flatpack.
Yeah.
That's
the future.
Yeah, it's going to be probably March, April-ish. We don't know. It'll come out when it comes out, but it's not very far from what we need to do. We're getting art for that. It's really exciting.
Oh, it's so good.
We've gotten a lot of sketches that we are truly in love with. So far, not a single bad one in the group. It's really, really fucking good.
Because I haven't submitted mine.
Oh, stop it.
Shut up.
Stop it.
Francita's going to do some of the art in this one, and she's giving herself shit, and she's not allowed doing that.
There will be an Ides of March release, but I don't think it'll be Flatpack. We'll see.
That's true. We do have an additional plan that we came up for April, but we can't talk about it yet.
Nope.
It's going to be really good.
Yeah, we have to stop adding new projects.
Yeah. We're not going to add any more projects except for that one.
Yeah, maybe.
But that one's a small one.
Uh-huh.
So. Okay, so
Francita, press save.
Yeah, seriously, what the fuck is wrong, Francita? Press save. Okay.
How did you know?
The other big thing, obviously, we're doing our pre-order campaign.
Yeah.
Most of y'all probably already know this.
That's still going on.
It's still going on.
There's still presents to be had if you're interested.
Yeah, we are still doing pre-orders until the moment when we get the books, basically.
I guess we'll have to do one for Megath, because
yeah, we can do that in a bit.
Megath,
That's right.
I'm sorry, I'm never gonna get it right.
So there's that. We are doing pretty good with that. Everything's fine. Everything's cool. And let's move on to the next segment with the actual segments.
Yeah.
So the first of the 2 segments is, what do we do when media is harmful?
Yeah.
Topically, right now, like I said, Wonder Woman 84 just came out. It's in theaters.
Which should so be my jam.
It should be. It should be. Like Wonder Woman should be a thing that you would be interested in.
Yeah.
Um,
I was 3 years old.
yeah. But the thing is, yeah, it's a period piece set in 1984, the classical era.
Did they do that on purpose?
1984 is in the Orwell film.
Yeah.
Probably.
Did they know they were?
They don't get
on
the
purpose?
irony of it.
Okay, well, we're not gonna trash on the movie or anything. We're just
Not
gonna
horrendously, no.
No, we're just gonna mention that there are aspects of the film and some of the actor choices that are, let's say, deeply offensive to certain communities.
Yes. Like there's some sexual assault in the movie that doesn't get it all examined. There is the lead actor is a proud member of the IDF and a huge supporter of the IDF murdering children. It's really awful.
No, she came out and said that was wrong.
Torturing children, but killing them. A few hours after Israel had bombed an area of Palestine, killing a lot of children, during a campaign where they slaughtered about 2,000 Palestinians, she came out in support of the IDF on Facebook. The timing was very bad. Anyway, this is a problem for a lot of people. There's like Lebanon will not play these movies with good reason, and there's a conversation going on the internet. And obviously, we're not going to fix that. The one thing that I can say is that if you poke through my Twitter, a friend of ours, Alex, they posted a series of Palestinian and West Bank businesses that you can buy from, and a couple of places that you can give to if you want to help out with that. I personally am going to be getting a couple of those things. I'm very excited about that. And we've done a few fundraisers in the past for like giving water to Palestinian children because they don't really have much of that.
Yeah.
So we try.
Dwam, same old.
What did Dwam say?
Logged in, killing and torturing children. Yeah, that's
Oh yeah. And then like of course like a couple weeks ago, Cyberpunk 2077 launched. Its own thing.
Digital penis.
Yeah, we talked extensively about the digital penis, but also there's like a whole bunch of problematic shit with that. It's complicated, and of course the sort of the going response that everyone has is that there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, but that's a cop out in a lot of ways. Because there is certainly more ethical consumption under capitalism, and there is room to sort of assess and acknowledge the ramifications of what we're doing and to make pointed choices. If you say that there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, that's okay, sure, that is a rhetorical tool, but is buying a ticket to that primarily goes to people that want to hurt people in the West Bank, is that as problematic, is that as unethical as, for example, buying water for the people in Gaza? No. There is definitely a more ethical choice of the two. So in saying that there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, you are equating those two things. Mm-hmm. You are equating all actions. Now, giving money to the Koch brothers, for example, which they use to pass laws that hurt people. Giving money to Disney, who passes laws to hurt people. Assuming that is as unethical as going to your local farmer co-op, putting down $20 on vegetables that are grown locally by local people and who are paid well. Saying that those are in any way equivalent just because they are consumption under capitalism is bullshit.
Yeah.
It's a nonsense point, and it's one that I see thrown out way too often.
So just a couple of comments from the chat. Dwarm says also you cannot consume some stuff. That's certainly true.
Yeah.
Hate consuming. So as far as I'm concerned, at the end of the day, consuming a thing because you hate it is hurting your spirit. It's hurting your soul, because you are feeding into a negative cycle. And the people who are counting the pennies and making the monies, they do not care whether you watched it because you hate it or you watched it because you love it. They don't care because they've still got your money.
it's the same amount of money.
And it's the same amount of attention, because remember, people fighting it, it's a Streisand effect. People arguing about something is still bringing attention to it.
Yeah.
So as far as they're concerned, it's probably fine.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I did see a lot of people hate watching Wonder Woman and hate playing Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah.
And in the comment threads, like, I saw a podcaster that I really like talking about how awful Wonder Woman is.
Yeah.
And in the comments, I saw a number of people who were like, I was on the fence, but now, because you talked about how awful it is, I'm going to go watch it.
Yeah.
And so that post from that one podcaster who hated it and who ethically disagrees with everything in it,
Mm-hmm.
they have encouraged other people to consume that product and to give money to those creators.
And like when somebody says, "Oh, this is the worst movie I've ever seen," and
Yeah.
it's like a tongue-in-cheek thing, that very regularly evokes a desire from other people to go, "Well, it can't be that bad. I got to see it myself."
Yeah.
That's a thing that humans do. That's this tastes weird. Here, try it.
outside of gaming, I would say that my single biggest hobby is watching movies that people think are horrible.
Oh, love it. It's
Like,
my favorite thing to do.
That's what we do.
Yes, Ash hate buying I Hunt is the one exception. You can do that. That's fine.
People hate my eye hunt. Well, and that's the thing. Like, if they want to hurt me and hate by it, I will cry. I will cry on camera for them.
Yeah.
As long as they do it. But if they don't, I will be so happy. So please, if you hate me, buy I Hunt. If you like me, also do so.
Yeah. Zio says it's the total cop-out talking about the no ethical consumption thing. The ethical consumption is one that leans out of capitalism. Yeah.
Yes.
Small businesses operate under capitalism, but trying to move out of it is ethical consumption.
Absolutely. And like, there are businesses, our business, for example, we own the means of production.
Yeah.
Yes, we do have to participate in the system. We do have to participate in capitalism. We sell through awful storefronts and things like that, whatever. But we do own the means of production. So inherently, what we are doing is less capitalist than others. And you can't really deny that. The idea that there is no ethical consumption under capitalism isn't some sort of gotcha. It's not some sort of solution to people saying, "Oh, this thing is awful," and supporting it hurts people. It isn't an answer to that. What no ethical consumption under capitalism is a constant reminder that we live in this system and we cannot just opt out of it simply. We cannot just choose to not be living under capitalism.
And it ends up being very, like, smug.
It can be,
I mean,
yeah.
Or you can get smug by saying, well, I only buy locally sourced shoes.
Yeah.
And, like, you can build up a mentality that, like, oh, well, I do everything correctly, and I don't understand why all the plebs can't.
Yeah. That's its own thing.
Well, that is it, but that's where that phrase goes to.
Mm-hmm.
It's an answer to, okay, you bought those ethically sourced shoes, but how did you get there? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you got there in a car. Okay. So actually, no, there was still a problem with what you did. So it's an answer to a problem that's very specific, and it's used as almost like a, the sort of folky Midwestern Christian thing of, oh, well, we don't hate the sinner, honey, we hate the sin.
Yeah.
That's often used in the same kind of way, which is to, like, well, we're ignoring the problem that is that person because we only hate the sin.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it can be very much a cop-out. It was not meant that way. That wasn't the original idea of that sort of rhetorical tool.
Yeah.
And that's very sad. I see the same sort of mentality used for things like Death of the Author.
Yeah, right.
Death of the Author, of course.
It's a very specific thing that means a very specific thing.
Yes, it's a literary tool in order to get a different perspective and to view things through a different lens.
Right.
That way you can criticize just the work, whatever. But then what we have is people saying, well, okay, I know that J.K. Rowling is a TERF, but Death of the Author, I'm just going to enjoy the books and ignore that.
Right.
And that's bullshit. Like, you can't do that. That's not what Death of the Author is.
Or you can, but you have to accept the consequences of
yes.
it. There are certainly some problematic things that I still enjoy, knowing that they're not great. But, like, that's a thing that I just have to accept.
Yeah.
you know. And that's the thing. Accepting that you're doing these things regardless, when you know that they're real, when you know that they're a problem, when you know that they're happening, sucks. But it isn't something you have to pick and choose your battles.
It should motivate you.
And it should motivate you to do something to counter that, which is ultimately what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that's yeah. So the go-to that I see a lot of is, and I don't disagree with it. These are not things that I inherently disagree with or whatever, but I want to sort of talk about some pros and cons of them.
Yeah.
Is if you want to buy these awful things, like if you want to buy a Funko Pop or whatever, that you should do commensurate contribution to the non-hegemonic version of the equivalent. If you buy a ticket to Wonder Woman, then go watch an indie film by a young black person or something. Okay.
The sort of modern leftist
Indulgence. And ultimately that's what it is.
That's exactly what it is.
It's
better than not doing anything.
It is. It's absolutely better than not doing anything. But one of the things that it ignores is the power differential and that we're talking about there. For one, every dollar in the hands of an independent creator is more powerful than it is to someone on that level. But there's a difference in consumption that you can see because of the ability to consume at this level. And so, hypothetically, Sorry to Bother You is one of my favorite movies. It is an independent film created by an amazing independent creator. And I encourage everyone to watch it. I encourage everyone to buy it. I have bought multiple copies across different formats. It's wonderful. I've probably spent probably $40 on it.
Yeah.
I think. I bought multiple copies, and it's a great movie. It's wonderful, but you can't really hold that up in equivalency to, like, say, for example, Star Wars. If you are buying tickets to a Disney movie, you might do that in...
Oh my god, their website is so good looking.
Their website for Sorry to Bother You is beautiful. It's one of the best movie websites I've ever seen. I love it.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's okay. But if you consume Star Wars by buying a ticket, it is in some ways equivalent to the ticket that you buy from Sorry to Bother You on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two issues there, though. The first is that Disney fights tooth and nail to stop movies from Sorry to Bother You from existing. Actively. They use aggressive trust policies and strategies in order to bully theaters from out of carrying any other movies but these big fucking blockbusters. So now it comes to the point where, like, when I say, oh, everyone should go buy a ticket to Sorry to Bother You, I get a lot of responses that are, there's nowhere showing it in two hours away. Like, I have to drive a ridiculous distance to see it, and I live in a city.
That's not a coincidence.
It's not a coincidence. The reason it happened is because of the harmful thing. So buying that ticket to Star Wars and buying the ticket to Sorry to Bother You aren't equivalent, because the ticket to Star Wars exists to shove out the Sorry to Bother You.
And, like, let's talk about, like, social media, right?
Yeah.
If you talked about The Mandalorian on Twitter, for example, twitter.com, which you might have heard of, there's probably a hashtag.
Yes.
That when you hashtag that movie, then it connects in this network of connection and attention.
Yeah.
There might even be a little, like, icon.
Little Baby Yoda emoticon.
Emoticon that pops up automatically because Disney has bought that far into having that control.
Yeah.
If you hashtag Sorry to Bother You, you're not going to get a Baby Yoda because that would be weird.
No.
But you're certainly not going to get a horse guy. So, like, it's not equivalent. Even if you were to, like, if you were, it would be impossible to personally produce as much buzz for, like, if you spent a month talking about nothing but the movie Sorry to Bother You. First of all, you lose all of your followers. And second, that month of your work would not even be a drop in the bucket compared to tweeting a hashtag for Wonder Woman once.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, right now...
Because it's just so interconnected.
right now you can go online and you can talk about your favorite indie movie.
Yeah.
And you might get 10 people who like clap back on Twitter and who are like, awesome, I love that thing. And they might retweet you or whatever.
Yeah.
If you tweet about The Mandalorian,
Yeah.
you might get 1,000 retweets.
Yeah.
Because of the way that momentum works.
And the way that the algorithms work, too.
Yeah.
They're biased against small projects.
Yes.
Because that's not how clout works.
So there's no real equivalence there. Because the one exists to stop the other from existing,
Yeah.
whereas the other is struggling to exist.
Right.
It is the difference between backing the oppressor and backing the oppressed, in very literal terms.
Yeah.
So there's definitely no equivalency. You could always do more. Like if you want to do that, that's fine. Like I jokingly there was someone who jokingly posted. I think it was like if you buy a ticket to Wonder Woman, you need to spend $1 for every minute of runtime.
Yeah. It's like a 3-hour long movie.
It is. It's like a 3-hour long movie. So you'd be spending like $180 or 150 or whatever.
Yeah.
To spend it on Palestinian creators. Or West Bank creators or charities.
And unfortunately, that's still not equivalent.
It's not. It's
No.
still not. And it sucks that that's the case, but it's true.
Doubly if you hate watch it. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. If you hate watch it, that's what social media loves.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that social media likes more than conflict.
Right, and the thing is, you hate watch Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
And you mention on Twitter, oh, I hated it for X, Y, and Z reasons. What happens is 8 million people or bots or trolls or whatever you want to consider them pop into your feed to argue with you.
Yeah.
And they're all using the hashtag. They're all, adding Gail Simone and the director and stuff like that. They're all making that network of connections stronger and stronger. So even if you go out of your way to go, here's what sucks about this, here's what sucks about this. So almost by drawing attention to it, you are feeding the monster.
Yeah.
But you can't not, because then everybody can say, well, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I had no idea she was I had no idea it was like that.
Well,
I watched the movie and it didn't even occur to me that they were totally mimicking an actual murder of 4 children.
Yeah. The sort of the interesting parallel though is that you can still I do it all the time. I talk about things and I'm like, this is why you should not consume this thing.
Right.
And a lot of times those can get engagement, and sometimes you do get a little bit of conflict coming in. You get people who are like, but don't gatekeep or whatever.
Yeah.
And that happens.
That's literally what they sound like. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's how I read all of their tweets. Yeah. So you get those people occasionally, but then you get a disproportionate number of people who are like, oh shit, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I am not going to consume that thing. And if the degree, or sorry, if the level of engagement is purely, I will not consume this thing, you should not consume this thing, and this is why, typically that's not very harmful. Typically it's helpful, if anything. Because it's hard to separate the sort of the signal and noise there. Because it's very hard not to and right now the thing that I can't get over enough is when people focus on there's a genre of tweet that goes in with, okay, I know this person is a monster and kills babies, but also the movie's not good. And then everyone is like, oh yeah, it's not good. Okay, but then that becomes the focus. And at that point, that becomes such a subjective, opinion-based thing.
Well, and okay, so modern blockbuster movies are vapid, vacant pieces of trash. That's what they are.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's not actually I will watch a Sharknado from now until the end of time. That's not a problem.
Not Sharknado 3.
Not Sharknado 3. That's fair.
They hired Ann Coulter.
I know.
Just for the audience. Sorry.
Right. So Sharknado 1 and 2, whatever. Not a problem.
Yeah.
This is not a concern for me. Vapid and pointless unfun movie or bad movies are fine.
It's totally fun, but yeah.
And so, but like that's not what the problem is. It's not because it's bad. Like it's not. Who gives it? Yes, the children's books that are written by that turf lady, they do suck.
They are bad.
They are bad. They're also children's books. So whatever. Are there better children's books? Yes, of course there are. But that's not the problem. And by moving away from the actual problems to the thing that is supposed to be vapid and pointless is vapid and pointless is like it's a non-point.
Well,
it wastes space.
And it empowers the people who say, "But I like it anyway."
Right.
Because at that point, that's equally as valid as the take that, well, it's not good.
Hash says it's weird how Sharknado skipped 3. Yeah, isn't that weird?
Hatsune Miku did Sharknado 3, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like I don't know. I think that's an important point. I think that's an important point. And that sort of that genre of post, but it's also bad. Those tend to get a lot of that engagement, that hate engagement. Oh yeah, it's bad. This camera shot was awful. The whole thing looks like a muddy mess. They color graded it like garbage.
We know.
But we don't care.
No.
It could be the Citizen Kane of fucking Marvel movies, and that doesn't mean it's not fucking harmful garbage. It doesn't matter. Bad people who do bad things can also make good art, and it has nothing to do with each other.
You want an example of one of those problematic faves that
Yeah.
I still indulge in? Tool.
Tool, yeah, the band. Tool,
The band Tool. I will still listen. I won't buy any of their stuff, but I will listen because it's music that means a lot to me, and it's very powerful, and it is, very, very skillfully done. But that guy, probably a rapist.
Yeah.
So, sucks. But like, I can't say that that's not good art just because he turns out to be a rapist.
No,
it
is.
Yeah.
It is technically very, very good.
Magnus, thank you so much for the gifts and the emotes. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Especially for the nerds.
Um,
Tool is the same name as the description of the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So one of the other ones one of the other genres of takes on this that I love is but what about all of the insert marginalized identity that worked on that thing?
Oh my god. Yeah, please hide behind. Look, I'm still deeply damaged by Gamergate. Like, there's no way I'm ever going to totally recover from my experiences with that. And the thing that I remember was I'm not your shield.
Not your shield.
Yeah, not your shield. This whole, op to create marginalized people to hide behind.
Yes, ironically using them as a shield.
Literally.
Yeah.
And I'll never get over that personally.
Yeah.
And I can't, look, the gay trans black guy who worked on Wonder Woman, he got his fucking check.
Yeah.
He's not any of the marginalized people who are a part of the process. They already got their checks. Their continued employment has nothing to do with whether or not you watch Wonder Woman and talk about how good it is.
And ironically, they tend to not get bonuses or residuals.
No, they're never in a situation where they are.
Yeah.
If we're going to talk about places where it's a little bit more complicated, Titi, what I'm going to say his name wrong because I'm panicking now.
Oh, Taika Waititi.
Yeah. Okay. If he did something really harmful, we would have to have a conversation about that.
Yeah,
sure.
we would.
That would be much more nuanced. But I don't know. The structure is built in such a way that there are heroes of these creations. There are auteurs.
Well, and people who benefit personally and on the long term.
Yeah.
By that success.
Yeah.
And that's hugely important. The check that in a second.
Yeah.
So oh shit. The thing is, so there's a statistic that I saw going around. I don't know how true it is because it's really hard to track these things, but something like 2 to 2.5% of the population is probably trans.
Okay.
2.5%.
Let's get those numbers up, people. Come on.
Yeah, let's make sure there are no cis men left. That's all.
2021. No cis men left.
No cis men. They're all gone.
I like that.
But so
Just kidding.
2.5%. the average blockbuster film probably has a solid staff of about 300 people, right?
Yeah.
So 2.5%, that means that there's about 7.5 trans people working on Wonder Woman. I don't know how that works.
Okay.
But there's about 7.5 of them. Okay, so there's 7.5 trans people on Wonder Woman. So if you don't buy a ticket to Wonder Woman, then you are hurting those 7.5 trans people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Uh-huh.
But like they're 2.5% of the population, so anything that you're not buying is, by that rationale, hurting those trans people.
That's true. If you don't go to Walmart.
Yeah, Walmart, the Walmart down the street, they have trans people there. And actually, it's really funny because Walmart is one of the only places that hires them.
Yeah.
Because they're considered sort of like society's rejects.
Right. But if you don't shop at Walmart because of the ethical problems with shopping at Walmart, more power to you. I wish I had that kind of money.
Yeah.
You are hurting trans people.
Yeah.
So,
It's the same thing. Like, it's literally the exact same thing.
Yeah. Lesbians are going extinct.
Oh my God.
We'll have that conversation some other time.
So I think that's an important thing to sort of to push back on every time you see it, because marginalized people aren't like some ludicrously rare like underrepresented population. There are a lot of people. They're like, if you depending on the definitions you use of marginalized, it's well over half of the population. And like, okay, so if that more than half of the population is working on something, we can't not consume it.
Okay, so let's give you an example of where this would be different. Okay?
Yeah.
Let's say Wonder Woman was 1984 was exactly the way it is in every possible way.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of Patty Jenkins or whatever her name is,
yeah,
it was a Palestinian director. And a percentage of the staff were like actually Palestinians. Like that was a big part of their push.
Yeah.
We would have to have this conversation differently.
It would be a different conversation, but it would not happen.
No, of course it would never happen. But I'm saying like there are situations where these things are less cut and dry.
Yes.
And those are absolutely valuable conversations to be having, certainly not on Twitter. But in general, those conversations are worth having. But that's not the case here.
Yeah. Okay, so John says, so like Rurouni Kenshin was my favorite manga of all time. It was my first foray into manga, and was there for me growing up. But the creator had pornography of children, and it took me a long time. But I don't even have to police myself when talking about my faves. It's not in the conversation anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, you'll never see me say, "Oh, guys, you got to listen to this Tool song." You're never gonna. Yeah. It's never gonna happen again.
Yeah. Like that's not a thing. So
they're not even in the playlist that I use when I write Molly stuff anymore. That's how serious it is.
That's sad face.
I replaced it with Deftones, so it's not too bad.
And yeah, Magus, you can absolutely help trans people directly. And in fact, okay, so let's break it down.
Artisanal vor.
So I spend $15 on my ticket to Wonder Woman. And I know that there's 7.5 trans people that worked on that movie.
Yeah.
Half of that, okay, so half of the ticket sales go to the theater.
Yeah.
Half of them go immediately to executive bonuses.
Yeah.
You've got about $2.50 left. About $1 of that, no, it's more like $2 of that goes to the principal cast and crew.
Right.
The director, the main actors, all of that.
Right.
About 50 cents of that money goes into the hands of the rest of the crew. They go to pay for those paychecks.
The other 290 people.
The other 290 people.
Yeah.
And so in a really like we're really talking about like maybe 1/5 of a cent goes to those trans people. Now, if I, for example, go to Twitter right now and I look at like trans pizza, I can spend $15 and it goes directly into a trans person's hands. They have there's the credit card processing fee that gets cut out, but we're really talking about like hundreds of times more direct benefit to a trans person.
Right.
I can go to Walmart right now, and the trans person who works in electronics, I can give them 50 cents, and I have done thousands of times more for them than my ticket for Wonder Woman would do for the trans people that are working on that movie.
Right.
Thousands. And yes, that was the next point. Zeo, that's absolutely important. So Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog the movie. When it was when it was previewed, everyone shat on it. Like it looked really awful.
It looked bad.
It looked bad, and everyone was like, "This is really awful. I'm not going to see it." Blah blah blah. There was a social media firestorm, and so what happened was
the teeth. That's right.
they pushed the animation studio into hardcore crunch mode, 70, 80 hours a week. Where they had to basically rebuild the entire movie because the majority of it was CGI. They built it, and the movie was a smash success. It was pretty much the last major success before COVID hit.
Yeah.
And
what was its competition? Cats.
And right after the movie launched and was a blockbuster success that blew records out for all expectations, everyone was fired.
Mm-hmm. The whole studio.
The whole studio was let go.
Everybody who crunched endlessly to get that thing to look better.
And so if you go on the Twitters, if you go around and you look at all of those threads where people are like, I'm not going to see it because the people were crunched. Every single fucking person in that comment section who says, well, if you don't go see it, you're hurting the workers.
They
can eat my ass because they've all got egg on their face. They're all ridiculous.
Eggmen on their
They're
face?
all Eggmen. Yeah, that's
they've
right.
They've all got Eggmen on their face?
They've all got Eggmen on their name.
And so we're back to Sonic 4.
Yes, BioWare did the same as well. That's absolutely true.
Oh, all the game studios do.
Game studios do it notoriously. There are very few that don't, and it's really weird. Like there's this whole convoluted conversation that we could have about video game studios, but like Ubisoft, notoriously good about it.
Yeah.
Electronic Arts, EA, very good about it.
Because they're so big.
Microsoft, very good about it. So it was funny, I know people who work at Obsidian, and when Obsidian was bought out by Microsoft, everyone was like, oh, it's the death of Obsidian, this is really awful, this is really awful.
The same with Mojang.
So one of my best friends worked for Obsidian, and when he left, they were in arrears paying him for about 4 months. They paid him in IOUs. And gosh, whenever you have an expensive apartment in Irvine, California, the landlord doesn't take payment in IOUs.
Nope.
Gosh. So like now Obsidian has job security.
Yeah.
Now they have regular paychecks.
Yeah.
Which is something they weren't getting whenever, groundbreaking, amazing game Fallout New Vegas comes out.
Yeah.
And that wasn't all Bethesda's fault. Like it's easy to blame them, but like there was money there, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So it's such a weird thing. Companies like BioWare, they will do very, very frequent launch a game, fire a bunch of people, launch a game, fire a bunch of people. It's super common.
Yes, Mojang continued the work of Hatsune Miku, who is the creator of Minecraft, as we know.
And Mojang is actually doing really well for itself with
From the people I know
Microsoft.
who work there are very happy.
Yeah. They're doing really well for themselves. And Supergiant's been doing really well. And they have amazing anti-grunge policies.
Mm-hmm.
They won't even let you, like, you'll get in trouble if you answer emails on your day off. And they have forced days off, like you're not allowed working more than a certain number of them.
Yeah.
They have forced vacation.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
So Supergiant had a job posting I think it was something like a year ago.
Yeah.
And I was checking it out, and it was super great that they were one of the final phases of the process of the recruiting process was that they were going to ask you for a test, a design test.
Yeah.
They were going to ask you to design something for them. And that is not an uncommon practice, but they usually don't pay you for it.
Mm-hmm.
And the Supergiant games were paying for it. And I was like, oh, that's super great. And then I was like, oh my god, it's so sad that I think this is great.
Yeah.
That should be like the common, what is like common, what is usual.
Absolutely.
And it's
Yeah.
But yeah, Supergiant games are super cool, super cool.
Yeah, they're very good company, and it's really awesome seeing companies like them rising up and like really doing well. I'm very excited to see that. Um, so part of the reason why companies like Supergiant are more common is because it's hard to make games. It's hard to, especially with increasing demand for production value and things like that. Every time I see someone talk about the production value of AAA games, like it's sort of like there's a part of me that falls like deep down in my gut, and I'm like, because the more that we demand these games to be like super polished and like super clean and big, huge games, like those budgets go up, and that increases the risk, that increases employee attrition, it employee abuse. It's awful. It's awful.
Ash in the chat says it's hard to compete with exploitation. It's
Yeah.
impossible to compete with exploitation. That's the point.
Yeah, by its nature, you can't. And it's like it was one of the prime arguments during the Civil War, that like from the North, it's because the North was not particularly anti-racist. But they didn't have slavery because of some people who were like, this is hypocritical and awful. But a lot of the people in the North were saying, well, it's not fair that the South gets to have slavery because we can't compete with them. Not because, well, it's not okay to own people, but no, we can't compete with them, and it's true. You can't. Um, but like, there's also there are ways that you can, but you just have to be you can't compete on their level. You can't let them dictate the terms of the competition.
Mm-hmm.
iHunt is doing very well. We are performing very well in comparison to a lot of the majors, who up until recently like were objectively like just dominating the field. But we're doing pretty well with iHunt, and a lot of that is because we're not letting them dictate those terms. We are doing it our way.
Yeah.
And we are being very upfront about it. But we are succeeding because of that. Let's see here. And Dwam, so saturated with overarching projects, detailed wide open worlds, eternal movie franchises, never-ending novel series. Yeah, but that's like the thing. Like that's the thing that I'm always really skeptical whenever people are like, "But I gotta see it." Like, no, you don't. There's other stuff. Like there's always other stuff.
Well, and as far as like, it's got to be this huge open world. That's got to be like endless series of books and everything. Like, first of all, I don't know if you know this, but for a creative, that's fucking exhausting.
It is.
I have trouble sticking to the same thing 2 books in a row.
Yeah.
Because I want to do other things. That's the way my brain works.
Mm-hmm.
So it's dangerous for creatives to be kind of forced into doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's not necessary. In this day and age, in the internet day and age, it's not necessary. If a world is so cool that 1 book of it is not enough, people will write fan fiction.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's not a problem. Look at fucking Hannibal.
Mm-hmm.
The TV series that had, 4 seasons or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
The fan
3.
art... 3, thank you.
She's a big fan.
Okay, the fan art and the fan fiction for it will outstrip it for eternity, for all I know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that, like, if a world is so beautiful and powerful that you need it to keep going, you can do that. It's fine.
Well,
the creator doesn't need to.
If anything, that is a great argument for why we needed to get rid of intellectual property law.
Yeah.
The fact that these few companies have a stranglehold on so much media, and they crush any sort of like competition, and they any sort of even vague reference to what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like that's harmful. That stops us from being able to build what we want to build. Hey, Forrest.
Hello,
welcome back. Also, just read another book. Yes, fucking Dwam. Yes, read another goddamn book. Seriously. Goddamn it.
Well, and like I get that. Okay, so like we're talking about a civilization of people.
Yeah.
Who are deeply broken because we're all working too hard. We're underfed. where we're fed the same pieces of media over and over again with new pictures on top of them, with new faces on top of them. It's like a palette swap instead of actual new material. Of course, we're clinging to the things that made us feel good once a long time ago because like nothing is making us feel good. We're a culture full of people who are unsatisfied and alienated. So the one thing that made you happy when you were a kid, of course you want to keep reliving that experience over and over again because for all you can tell, that's all there is.
Yeah.
There's no hope that like you're going to find a new book series that's going to make you feel just as good because you have no evidence that that's the case and they're not making new books. They're making the same book over and over again.
Well, ironically, we are seeing a lot of this in the gaming field, which is, it's our little corner of the world with like D&D and stuff, where people are allowed to do their own thing. Of course, they're doing it under really exploitative conditions where they're only getting half of the proceeds of their work.
Yeah.
But they're like, okay, we're going to open the doors and you guys can play in our sandbox. And people are doing it, and there's so many things that people are making and loving.
Yeah.
Like they're making all of this new content, and the original sort of the creators, the property holders, as the case may be, don't really have to do anything there, and it allows for a breadth of experience and a breadth of storytelling that wouldn't have otherwise existed.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. I think that the model that is used is really awful, but I think that the basic idea of that being a thing is really, really great.
So Dwan mentions, and this is an important point that I want to get on before we move totally off to some other stuff.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time with capitalism's need to categorize to accomplish the market.
Yeah.
Meaning, or to accommodate the market. Meaning, your identity gets categorized into everything that you engage with. So this is, when we strip back all of the like logical problems one way or the other with like, don't engage with problematic material. Ultimately, the kernel of what's happening for a lot of these people is I have been told extensively that I am what I consume.
Yeah.
And so when you hate Wonder Woman, even though all you really hate is this movie for these reasons, you are saying you hate me. Because I am Wonder Woman. I have been told that my value is as a consumer of Wonder Woman. And if I'm not doing that, if you're trying to stop me from doing that, you are harming me and you are alienating me from the only thing I know.
Yeah.
That sucks. And you can have, because a lot of people who are having this problem are so wrapped up in all of the minutia of it that they don't even know that that's their problem.
Yeah.
So you can't even engage with them in good faith because ultimately they can't admit what's really going on is they don't know who they are. They don't know what they love.
Yeah.
So all they have is their shelf full of Funko Pops.
Yeah.
And like that is the saddest fucking thing. And like, yeah, and like the thing that you can do for people who are so stuck in those things is invite them to share media with you that's not that.
Yeah.
And I mean this very literally. I mean, COVID notwithstanding, have them come to your house and watch a movie.
Yeah.
Or stream it with them and talk to them about how cool it is. Make it a secret thing between the two of you. And give them another point of identity. Ask them, gosh, what is it about Wonder Woman that means so much to you? Oh, there's a really similar thing that I think you might like. Here, and put the damn book in their hand if you have to.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this, and I'm talking about like, don't do this for internet strangers. I'm talking about the people in your lives who you feel like they've been lost to the consumerism.
Yeah.
So much so that like your relationships are strained because you say this is bad and they say this is me.
Yeah.
You have to kind of embrace the fact that like it's bad for you to be wrapped up in a corporate idea.
Yeah.
And that like you'll see these cycles with comic books of like we're rewriting Wonder Woman again. And it was great when Gail Simone did it, but we're going to do it with somebody else this time. And they hate everything that Gail did. So now I'm conflicted because my identity is Wonder Woman. And this new author is doing something that I don't like. So now I want them murdered.
And it causes cognitive dissonance.
Right.
It's this whole thing.
I really, really want you to understand that some of the people that you're arguing with about this stuff, it's not that they're arguing out of ignorance. They're arguing out of terror because they don't know who they are outside of their consumption.
Yeah.
And that is so sad.
Yeah, like yesterday, and it turns otherwise good, well-meaning people bad.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, I had a liberal blue checkmark type write me off and say that I am just a misogynist who hates women-led movies because I was talking about the parallels between Wonder Woman and the real-world bombing of Palestinian children. Apparently, that makes me a misogynist that hates movies by women. Even though, Tank Girl is one of my favorite, if not my favorite movie. In the moment, I'm sure that person believed that because that's the only way. That's the safe response. They can't.
Well, that's them protecting themselves.
Yeah, because if they engage with my actual point, it hurts them because they realize I paid for those bombs.
And you can't expect people to hurt themselves.
Yeah.
And you have to expect that people will protect themselves from harm. That's what a human being does.
Yeah.
So when what you're saying is the thing that you're doing is causing harm and it's hurting you too, you're saying to them that they have to experience pain to get over it. And guess what? People don't do that.
Yeah. Unless they do.
Yeah.
Like people who have sort of made that conscious decision too, certainly, yes, they can do that. I've done it. We've all done it at times. Yes. But it is exhausting. It is difficult.
Yeah.
And you have to make that choice. And sometimes people just can't. Like, they just don't want to because it's hard.
The parallel I think I see sometimes, and I'm sort of talking from familial experience here, is the person who has a very, very serious mental health issue.
Uh-huh.
Who is so used to that issue being who they are, that getting treatment to get past that is too horrifying because they don't know who they are if they're not this sick person.
Yeah, they don't know who they will be.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that like watching Wonder Woman is the same thing as being clinically depressed, but I'm saying that the level of obsession that these consumption develops becomes so harmful and so dangerous that they literally can't imagine themselves being better.
Yeah.
So instead of them assuming that it's a being better situation, it must be they have to write you off. They have to get rid of you because they can't deal with the reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that's a pretty good point.
Well, now that everybody's depressed.
Yeah. Well, no, I get that. And okay, so yeah, sometimes it is hard. Sometimes it does feel like an attack if it's not Star Wars or MCU or whatever.
Yeah.
And okay, so yeah, it is, and it's not a foolproof plan because if it was something that we could just do and fix the fucking world, we would do it.
So how do you convert your depression into fate? Oh.
Converting my depression into fate is why I Hunt exists.
Yeah, I Hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me introduce you to I Hunt.
Wait till the witch book comes out.
Yeah. So that's the thing.
Hey, you want to do a present? How about a clumsy segue? Oh, can you not do that right now?
We can do a present.
You want to do a present?
Yeah,
because I think we owe Magus a present.
Yeah, I think so. Can we, Francita? Can you share your screen maybe?
Yeah, give me a second. I have to open the presents first.
Likely story. I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, you get a present. You subscribed. You get a present.
Yeah.
You can read about it there.
I am, yeah.
Yay.
Okay, let's see. Watch stream, pop out, and then we're going to put this over here, and we're going to maximize it. All right, that should work. Yeah, there we go. Gifts. So basically, Magus, pick one of the existing things via letter and number. Please don't pick one that's already taken because
That would be weird.
that defeats the purpose.
And don't be Phil and pick like a K or 7.
Yeah, it has to be a valid letter and number. Don't be a douche.
He's not a douche. He's a troll. There's a difference.
That's true.
Yeah, Phil is a troll. Don't be a Mr. Bungle.
Our most beloved troll, however.
Yeah, we love Phil.
And I'm just posting on Twitter that we are transitioning into the second part of this evening.
Oh, I'm gonna do that too, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, 2D. 2D Love for Life.
Okay.
Like every character I play. How are you, Tina? She gave me a thumbs up.
It's by people of color game, so we will. I don't remember how we're going to use this, but we basically are going to buy on
yeah.
Itch, I believe.
Yeah, so basically we're going to post on Twitter, and I will do that later. We'll post on Twitter that basically post your favorite POC game on Itch, and you can go through the thread and pick one, and we'll buy it for you. Pretty simple. We'll gift it to you. So we will do that. We will make a post later on that. Probably it'll probably be in the coming week.
Yeah.
We'll see, because we've got to basically wrap a lot of these. So, yay, game!
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll have a new, great new indie game from someone on Itch.
And hopefully someone you've never heard of, so it's a nice fun.
That's the ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Are you guys ready for the most dope slideshow of all human history?
It's a good slideshow.
I don't know that that's true. But did you actually look all the way through it?
No.
Oh, good.
I said I didn't.
There's some surprises.
Okay. So we've got that. Let's see.
You have to stop sharing or something.
There it is. Stop watching.
Okay.
Okay. And now back to the slideshow.
Yay. Okay, so we have to say goodbye to Problematic Bay.
Bye, Problematic Bay. But
slideshow on how to make slideshows. Yeah, that sounds about right.
But as problematic as it is, yes, there's no ethical consumption or whatever. But this Problematic Bay is just a spree killer. He hasn't killed nearly as many people as the IDF. So supporting this slasher killer is actually better than watching Wonder Woman.
I want to say actually within the character in our book, the slasher book, which is supplement 13.
I think.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That sounds right. Released on Friday the 13th. I don't think he's actually successfully killed yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You get to him before he kills. So.
Oh, okay. All right. So.
Communist shambling dead because the Z word is actually problematic.
Yeah, we don't use the Z word.
We don't use the Z word. Worse than Jason Voorhees, that's right.
Objectively. That was the thing that always got to me a while ago in political discussion in America. People were talking about how Ted Cruz might have been the Zodiac Killer.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really unfair because the Zodiac Killer killed maybe 15 people or something?
I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. But Ted Cruz has killed thousands of people. So so what if he's a fucking Zodiac Killer? Don't paint the Zodiac Killer with that brush.
Not on the same level.
Yeah.
There you go. Communist shambling death. There you go.
Yeah. All the time I've heard people compared to Charles Manson. Charles Manson hasn't killed nearly as many people as your average Republican.
Technically, he didn't kill anybody.
Yeah, well, technically, but
yeah,
I would definitely say
technically didn't kill anyone.
He's definitely responsible for deaths.
Yes.
Yeah.
But not nearly as many as your average Republican.
That's true.
He is, very, 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 very much fewer. Okay.
Also, this is a very random comment, but if you start thinking the murders of serial killers that we know are the ones that we know, that gets really, really scary.
Yeah.
Because the Zodiac Killer may have killed 100 people, and we only knew about 20 of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second part of our day's
Yes.
discussion.
Yes.
We're gonna convert some. We're gonna talk about converting games to Fate,
Yes.
which is pretty cool, right?
And this is go towards the light kind of thing, you know.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
All right.
Yeah, we're gonna go towards the light. That's right.
Megas, you know how to do this. You're very good at this. Okay.
But it's a good discussion anyway.
Yeah.
I think so. I think it'll be a good topic.
Yeah.
So, why convert your game? Why would you want to convert your game to Fate? Like, this is a thing that I can talk about, but like, why would you want to do that?
Because you don't want to buy any more Wizards of the Coast products.
Oh, that's a good one.
Is that a good one?
Yeah, you could also you not buying White Wolf, not buying Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
Not buying big hegemonic fucking corporate owned bullshit.
Yeah.
You can just change it to Fate, and even if you don't like Fate, or even if you don't like Evil Hat, you can access all of that for free.
Yeah.
Or through another company.
Yeah.
For example, iHunt has the entire Fate system in it.
Yeah.
Like, you can just do that. So it's cool.
Well, and I mean, I think another thing to acknowledge, we talk about like these needs for these huge, expansive game settings.
Yeah.
You don't need that.
Yeah, and obviously you can use other systems too, but right now we're just talking about the specifics of Fate. So why would you convert it to Fate? Because maybe you don't want to play something else. Like maybe you want to try something different.
Maybe all you have is Fate dice.
Maybe all you have is Fate dice. That's a weird problem.
That would be very bizarre, but it could be true.
So I think one of the other ones is that maybe you don't really want to get into the minutia of the game that you're doing. Maybe you're playing maybe your group wants to play Shadowrun, but like also you'd rather beat your head against the wall than make a character in Shadowrun.
Maybe you're running a game for a 13, 11, and 8-year-old.
Yeah.
And you absolutely do not want to go through the steps of teaching the 8-year-old how to play D&D because fuck that go.
Yeah. Yeah.
That could be
there's
also real answer, because since we are converting my game, really, why I want it to be Fate and not D&D. Yeah, all that you said is true, but also in my specific game, mostly of what we're doing is just like role playing and is narratively focused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are not engaging very much in the kill the baddies, take the loot dynamic.
Yeah.
So really, why are we playing D&D?
Yeah.
It's because D&D tells you can play anything in D&D, and it's not true. D&D is a fucking war game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Magnus, actually it's Fudge Dice. Lately it's been Fate Dice. It's referenced as Fate Dice in the new books. So I'm calling them Fate Dice, and that's what I'm calling them in iHunt. So that's what we're going with, okay? It is very, very, very good for young teenagers. Mena just ran a game for the 3 kids. That's the reference that she was making there. And they did really fucking well with it. It's very intuitive.
I'll probably try to do a blog post talking about the specifics, but
Yeah.
it's really good.
Forrest says maybe you're better at languages than math. That's
Yes.
a huge thing.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons why a lot of kids will do very well with it.
Yeah.
Because it's very intuitive whenever you explain it that way.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Everybody understands story pieces. Everybody understands like the chunks that are narrative. That's kind of a thing with monkeys.
Yeah.
And we're monkeys. So like that is much easier to communicate.
Absolutely. Oh, and Magnus also says if you want to play Shadowrun, play Blades in the Dark. You can do that. I think Blades in the Dark is a little hard to explain. I like it, but I think it's a little difficult to explain.
Also, like, this is very funny because like I just converted my other game, which was Forged in the Dark, into Fate.
Yeah.
Because of the same reason, because like we wanted more role play than just like the greedy mechanics of Forged in the Dark. So
yeah. Okay.
Like, you just want that.
So, first question I have to ask whenever someone's like, why convert the game? So the first question is, are you happy? Like, are you happy with the game that you're playing or the game that you are talking about playing? If the answer is genuinely yes, then just fucking do it.
If you love the crunch of D&D, you don't have to change it.
Yeah, you don't have to change it. Yeah, that's fine.
There
It's
are
cool.
absolutely people who love that level of minutia.
Yeah.
Fine, cool.
But I think that a lot of times the
Fine,
answer,
I guess.
if the first answer to "Are you happy?" is yes, really deep down it's not, and so I think it's worth interrogating that. Like seriously, I think a lot of people are sort of by default they're like, yeah, no, I like playing D&D. But then whenever they really interrogate why they like playing it, it's not because of D&D. They like playing with their friends. They like hanging out with their friends. They like talking around the table. They like portraying characters. But really, what the game delivers isn't really doing anything.
Yeah.
And that's not what's making them happy. If anything, it's getting in the way. So I think that asking yourself, "Are you happy with what you're doing?" is important. It's a good grounding point. So what can Fate do, and what can't Fate do? So Fate is an action adventure game. It's a narrative heavy. It's a narrative action adventure game. It can do other things, but primarily that's what it is. It was made for pulp action, and it does very well with that. It was made for Spirit of the Century primarily as a test run for Dresden Files. So it can do a variety of things, obviously, but by and large, it is an action adventure game. Fortunately, most of the games on the market are, so it is easy to make that jump. There are things that I feel that it can't do very well, and that it needs to be heavily adapted in order to do. I probably would not go with Fate in those cases. I would go with something that's more fitting. But also, it depends on what your priority is at the table. If you don't really care about what the game brings to the table, and you just want a simple game that runs well, then Fate can probably do it just fine. Even if it's something that Fate doesn't do well,
Yeah.
it is easy and it gets out of the way. So I think that's worth considering.
But it is a good idea to know what it does well and focus in on that stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll sort of talk about that a little bit as we get through these things. Because obviously what it does well is going to be parts of what you have to convert.
Yeah.
Okay. So next, let's see. What is your game about? So there's sort of like two approaches, two ways of considering this. And the first is, what if you haven't played the game yet and you're talking about it? Like, what if your friends are like, we want to play Shadowrun, and you're like, what is your game about? The other way is, what if you've already been playing your game, then you need to interrogate what the game that you are playing, the specific game at your table, those specific stories, what are those about?
Yeah. Not what the game book is about, but what the stories at your table are.
Yes.
Because they're not necessarily the same. They're almost never the same.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're literally running an adventure straight out of the book and everybody is railroaded into doing exactly what the book says, you're probably not doing what the game is about.
Yeah.
You're doing what your story is about.
Yeah. Absolutely.
No, there's not a star swipe. I don't use Windows shit. I use fucking Mac shit.
Yeah, this is not...
This is for mature, sophisticated people. God damn it.
Yeah, we're using Mac presentation. I don't fucking know what it's called.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway.
Keynote.
That's it. Yeah, Keynote. So that's the thing worth considering. What is the actual game about, and what is the game at your table about?
Well, thank you so much for the subscription.
Thank you. So what is the actual game about, and what is the game at your table about? The thing that so when I look at a game, there's a sort of mask that every game wears, where it says that it's about one thing, and then there's the reality of it, which is what the nature of the game really is. And I think that that's worth taking a look at and considering from a sort of design standpoint. Shadowrun is like, it's supposed to be about like, bucking the system and being loud and rebellious and taking down blah 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 and blah blah blah. But really, it's kind of a tactical gear porn game.
Yeah.
Like 9/10 of the character sheet is just fucking gear shit and like skill traits, and it's very much about a turn-based combat system.
Yeah.
That can be modified for other things. Like they use the turn-based combat system for computer hacking and stuff like that. But it's really just a tactical combat game.
It's 150% gear.
It really is.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And yeah, if that's what you're into, that's what it is. But it's important to acknowledge that. Like, it's important to pay attention to what it is, because the things that you want out of your game, if you can or cannot, replicate them elsewhere. If you want gear porn, don't play Fate. Like, if you want gear porn, like, if that's the primary thing, then you probably don't want to. There are ways that you can do it.
Yeah. Particularly if you focus in on the fractal.
The Fate
idea.
fractal, yeah.
If you treat your gear as characters, you could probably have a lot of fun with that.
Yes, you can. But I think that the gear porn in Shadowrun is more of a volume thing, less than a quality thing.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really have named guns that have personality in Shadowrun. You have 30 guns, all with slightly different stats. And if you want gear porn, yeah, you can play Lancer. Absolutely, that's a thing. Okay, so I think that those are important. You got to make that decision. You got to determine, what is it about and what are we going to focus on. With Fate, you're not going to have that breadth of, well, you can just do anything. Like, you've got all of this stuff, and like, you've got combat rules, and you've got blah, blah, blah. It's not that complex, and it's not that wide-reaching. It's important whenever you convert your game to Fate to determine what it's about. So, Francita, the game that you're converting, what is it about?
So, long story short, I think the best way to just describe it is like, it could be called Storm King Thunder's Friendship is Magic, because they basically just go and befriend every giant that they find, and it's about making friends and resolving conflicts, just talking to people.
Okay, that's super, super important. And what system were you playing it in?
It was D&D 5e.
Oh my god, I'm sorry.
That's definitely not something.
Yes. Yeah, it's awful, because like, when I got into Fate the first time, I was like, oh my god, this would be so great for my game, because then I could have aspects and all that kind of personality stuff for my NPCs who are not really like, D&D is giving me all these powers that they have, but they don't use them because my player just wants to talk to them and befriend them.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that's huge. That's a good summation of what your game is really about. Because if there are people who would answer and they're like, well, it's a game of D&D, but what you've explained is not a game of D&D. It is what your game at the table is about, and that's what you need to focus on whenever you work it into Fate. So, how do we do this? Like, how do we start converting our game to Fate? Like, how do we start prioritizing what we need to change and what we need to adapt and whatever? So the thing that I think is that you should look at your character sheet. The character sheet for the game that you want to convert. Now, this character sheet here is Pathfinder?
No, that's D&D 5e.
Oh, it's D&D. I can't tell the difference. They all look the same to me.
And you can get that character sheet and many more at buyfrancita.com.
Yes. That is
Yeah.
Francita's sheet, and it's beautiful. I just don't know what game it's for.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yes, Ash, I am discriminatory. I am prejudiced against role-playing games. So yeah, you should get Francita's character sheets. They're wonderful. She did the one for iHunt, which is also wonderful. So you look at your character sheet, and what you need to do is you need to cut unnecessary tools. Like, you need to look. Okay, so Francita, take a glance at this character sheet. What on this character sheet is unnecessary for the game that you are running?
Okay, for the game that I am running, probably I don't need Okay, the first thing is I probably don't need that many skills.
Nope. Okay.
Which are not all listed there, but it's okay. D&D has like, I don't know how many, more than 15 skills.
Yeah.
It's a lot, and probably I don't need that many. I think uh, like I am really considering either like going with the approaches that go with accelerated.
Sure, but
Uh,
what is unnecessary?
yeah,
Unnecessary first.
yeah, the skills. I think we don't need. We could probably do without the skills. Like we
Okay.
could just like focus on the abilities or something
Okay.
uh,
Proficiencies?
to do everything. Um, the proficiencies would just be like what you're good at. Um, but the way that D&D presents them is not the way that I need them to
Okay.
be. D&D
Okay.
just tells you like you are proficient in this according to your class and your whatever
Then they're
the fuck.
unnecessary.
Yeah, there
Okay.
is like I need something based on the character and not a class,
Okay.
you know?
How about hit points and hit dice?
No, hit dice are I don't need
No.
that.
Nobody
Passive
needs it.
perception?
No.
Okay. Inspiration.
Um, Inspiration is a cool mechanic, but also
Doesn't really bring a lot to your
it
table.
yeah, to my table in specific, I think with just the mechanics that Fate is going to bring, it's going to be enough.
Yeah, okay. And really, you don't really need the ability scores as they are, right? Because, like, you're not making a lot of strength rolls. You're not making a lot of constitution checks, right?
No.
Okay.
And that isn't specifically why I thought that the approaches might be better because like
Yeah.
sure I have characters that are more like strong and whatever, but they don't use their strength to punch.
Yeah.
They use their strength to intimidate,
Yeah.
for example, or
Okay.
to do like feats of strength that will like all the other character,
Okay.
things like that.
Yeah. Class. I think class is maybe important. Is it?
Um, but I mean, yes, but not as class itself. Like that
Yeah.
would be like the high concept.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Remember, we're cutting the unnecessary. It doesn't matter what we're
Yeah,
going to turn it into yet. Level, not
yeah,
necessary, right?
no,
Okay. Experience points?
no.
Okay. Um, honestly, I think that that's pretty much everything on the sheet. Like class might be somewhat important, race might be somewhat important, background might be name. Um, experience points are obviously not important. So, but really, all we have is a few things at the top of the sheet that are really important to what you're playing. Like, right?
Yeah,
Okay. Very simple. Okay, so highlighting the necessary tools here. That's basically looking at the things that are important to the play that you want to have, and those in this case, what we're talking about really is class, maybe race, maybe background. That's it.
yeah,
Um, so pretty simple, pretty simple. And you want to do this anytime you're doing this. You want to look at that character sheet and you want to look at what you don't really need at your table in your play experience. You want to cut it, and then you want to take the things that you do really feel are essential and you want to highlight them. That you can physically do this if you've got a physical character sheet, but you don't have to. But the point is, find what's important, get rid of everything else. Pretty simple. Next, ask what fate delivers.
And clap your hands while you do it.
Yes, clap your hands. Ask what fate delivers. Okay, so fate is a pretty simple system. It by its nature, it has aspects, it has skills, it has stunts, it has stress, consequences, and extras, and that's it. That's the entirety of the system. What do you need to design? And usually, what this means is what extras do you need and what modifications do you need to those things that already exist. So, Francita, your system, like you were talking about how you might look into like fate accelerated approaches, and that's fine. You can use accelerated, you can use condensed, you can use fate core, whatever. But the important thing is to acknowledge the things that fate has and what you will need to modify. Um,
Mm.
so approaches in this case are very straightforward, and they're like super universal. You can use them for pretty much any game you can play with. The equivalent of approaches in Fate Core is skills. If you were doing a game like Francita's, I would consider like what is the skill list, what are the things that I want to prioritize, etc., etc. But really, so the things, what do you need to design? What does Fate not inherently have an equivalent to? Um, so in your case, Francita, do your characters use much in the way of like magic?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the
Yeah, but it yeah, they use magic,
I think that magic
but
is kind of the given. You okay? What?
mhm.
Oh, sorry, you
No,
weren't finished.
I was going to say that we don't have I don't think we will have the problem of like uh, needing a huge list of like the huge list of spells that
No.
druids or whatever should have and have to choose a few spells from that. My characters, my players usually just have the same spells always. They just don't bother with the huge list.
Yeah.
So that is
So
not going to be like so much of a problem.
yeah. So typically, whenever you're looking at a traditional like fantasy action adventure game, spells and stuff like that are really the place that you need to focus. And I think that like we'll get to it a little bit later, but basically there's sort of two approaches. And the first is that you can just use stunts, and the second is that you can make something. You can make extras. I like leaning on stunts for this sort of stuff, but like we'll get to that in a moment. Um, really, most of what your traditional action adventure game, your D&D covers, the things that you would really want out of that, it's already covered by the basic system. So I don't think there's much we need to consider here. But once we get there, we should look at stunts and we should look at extras and see if we can cover what your group uses. Um, so first, aspects. First thing, the single most iconic bit of Fate is aspects. I hope that everyone here knows what aspects are, but basically they're epithets, they're descriptions of your character, and they tend to fit into certain categories, depending on the sort of the fork of Fate that you are using. iHunt's version of Fate uses high concept, drama, day jobs, and vision boards. And then there's two that are sort of free floating aspects. Aspects are really cool because they are both positive and negative. They can be used. They can be used as an advantage at the table or a disadvantage, both of which are fun and dramatic. Big fucking deal. Mm. So, the aspect categories are a good place to say what you want about your game. Um, Average Game of Fate has 6 aspects on a character. The the given one that I think almost every Fate game that I've ever played has is something like high concept. High concept is just like how you describe your character. It's this sort of elevator pitch that you would give to a friend if you were describing your favorite character in your favorite TV show. That's an easy one. That's a given.
With the kids, when I ran with them recently, I just shortened it down to what makes you cool.
Yeah, what makes you
What
cool?
makes you cool?
I like that. Um, And then the second one that we have is drama, which is trouble in Fate Core.
Yeah.
I personally think that one's a universal one. I can't really picture playing a game that doesn't use something like that, just because that's very much the style of narrative that I like. I like characters who are a little fucking weird, a little broken. Like they have hooks for negativity to happen around them.
Well, and it's important to introduce the idea of a negative aspect during character creation because it reminds the players, or it lets the players know that um, compelling is going to be a thing.
Yeah.
And that one of the ways that you generate your magical points, your fate points for later, is that you have an aspect that makes your character make bad choices.
Yeah.
And that's how I framed it when I was telling the kids. What's the thing that will cause your character to make some bad choices?
Yeah. We don't really, like, most of the time we don't really like TV and movies and books where people don't make any bad choices. Like, that's weak and boring for the most part. Like, it
We
can
don't like
happen,
when they make
but
bad choices for stupid reasons, but like,
yeah.
but if they're making a bad choice and you can see why because it's a part of their character creation, that's fantastic.
Yes. If it makes sense for them, we like it.
And we go, oh, of course he would make that choice. Oh God.
Yes, exactly. That's how that should be.
Yeah.
And then in Fate Core, you have sort of stories that pull in other characters. I like that. It's a nice point of bonding. But with iHunt, we went with day jobs and vision boards.
Yeah.
Day jobs being literally day jobs, and vision board being the thing that you want. It's a goal that can't be alienated from you. And then you have two others. So, Francita, what kinds of things do you want the character... Like, this is a good place to say something about your game. So, what kind of aspects do you think that we should have in your not D&D?
Like the name of the
Categories.
Like the category of the aspect.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so high concept is, I think that works
Yeah.
basically for whatever. I like the name, how it's named, Trouble, because that is that just makes sense, I think.
Yeah.
For my game, they all have some kind of thing that is causing them either grief or worry or whatever.
Yeah.
I think one important thing to consider is okay, so I think I would like something kind of like I don't know if this will be the high concept though, something like a role that they play in both the sparse combat situations and mostly in the social situations.
Basically, character class.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think that role is a good one. I think that's a really good one. And because it's an aspect, it gives you room to play with that. So you're not just a thief, like, you're a bumbling thief or whatever.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a lot of room to play with that.
World-class thief.
World-class thief, whatever. Yeah. There's a lot of room to make that fun. Now, okay, so what about role is really good. I really love that. So what other thing on the top of the character sheet did we have that is important that is not addressed already? I think that's it, except maybe race, which can get tied in with high concept or class.
Yeah.
So basically, we would want something else, like maybe one other thing.
Yeah. I think I would add like some kind of like the personal ties.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true.
Or a personal tie, or that works for all of the characters in the campaign that I have, and it's something that I have been thinking when creating or running NPCs in the campaign. Also, I always add something that they care about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's a good an anchor point. An anchor point to your story is a very good way to go, I think. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have four aspects there. And then you have 2 free-floating aspects. That's what you need.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, skills.
They're multiplying. And I'm
Okay.
losing control. No,
So-
it's chills.
Yeah, skills. All right. So in this case, I'm not going to lean too much on Francita's example because she's using approaches instead of skills. So I'm gonna sort of generalize this one. Skills are the primary sort of like hard character traits in Fate. There's usually a list. And in the case of Fate Core, there is a set list. In iHunt, we changed those to skill sets, which are more job descriptions or job titles, because we wanted them to be broader and we wanted them to be used more creatively. How you modify that skill list says tons about your game, and what is in that list is basically a list of permissions for how you as the designer, as the person sort of facilitating the game, expect the game to be engaged with and played. Basically, what you have done by building a skill list is you have sort of given the players a key ring full of keys, and you're telling them, this is how you unlock the doors in my story. And if they don't have a key on that ring, then it's not really important to your story.
Hacking is a good example.
Hacking is a good example. Yeah, we have a hacker skill, absolutely, because we think that is a way that we want people to engage with iHunt.
Right.
It's important. One thing that we did with iHunt that's a little different than a lot of games is that we have a number of social skills. We have influencer, grifter, social worker. We have socialite. So there's a lot of different ways that you can engage with the system from a social perspective, because we think that that's important for what iHunt is. Now, that's not going to be the case for all other games. Like you have, oh god, I can't remember in the Fate Core. In the Fate Core set, you have I can't remember. There's like one that's like a forceful one, and there's one that's like a talky one. Because it's been so long since I've used the core skills. Those statements are important. Those are really important to consider. Even if you are using basically the default list, it's important to do it with intent.
Yeah.
To know what that means going in. The pyramid in this case being the at default, it's a skill at +4, 2 at +3, 3 at +2, 4 at +1. Again, do it with intent. That tells how many skills a player gets. It also helps you to sort of build an economy of skill in the game.
If you're using a different number of skills, which you can totally do, on the Fate SRD or in the Fate the fast book, what's it called?
Condensed,
they give you examples of how to do the math on that. So
yeah.
If you're only using 6 stats, like in Flat Pack, there's only going to be 6 skills. It's like a +3, a +2, a +2, a +1, a +1, and a 0.
Yeah.
Like they'll help you figure out the math.
Yeah. So yeah, the sort of the idea is that you want there to be enough diversity in the group that characters feel interesting and different. But you should have enough coverage that most things you have at least competent coverage for. Now, narrative appropriateness, this is just a thing to consider. Sometimes skills might seem intuitive in your world, but you don't necessarily want them to be doing that. Like, you don't want the players to be doing that. So it's not actually narratively appropriate to give them tools that you don't want them using. The sort of famous example that has frustrated me for a significant portion of my career as a game designer for other people was during the design of World of Darkness 2nd Edition, Vampire the Requiem particularly, Justin Akili, the developer at the time, did not want there to be a computer skill. the game is supposed to be modern. It was set in the 2000s, but Justin didn't want there to be a computer skill on account of the fact that he didn't want vampires typing on computers as a way to solve problems. He didn't want the vampires to be unable to use computers, because obviously young vampires existed, but he did not want that to be the mechanism with which players engaged the game.
Yeah.
And he fought tooth and nail about this, and eventually they ended up using it, the computer skill, because they decided that everything in the World of Darkness would use one central set of skills, and they wanted it to be more broad. They wanted it to be sort of like solving everything list. Now, the problem with that is the same problem with D&D can do anything. If you can do anything, then you don't do anything well.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what that system has a problem with, is that it doesn't make any bold statements about its setting and about its world by doing that skill list. It's very, very vanilla, very milquetoast. In Fate, it's very important that you consider narrative appropriateness, so you don't run into that. If you try to do everything with Fate, you will fall on your face. You will be making a bad game, and don't do that. You can do better.
Yeah. And like you can take this a step further than your skills too, if you want. There's the 4 actions that are a big part of Fate: attack, defend, overcome, and create an advantage. For Flat Pack, I removed attack and defend.
Yeah.
I replaced them with similar actions, but the game is not about attacking things. The game is not about knocking things out. It's about fixing things.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're confronting a problem, it's got a stress track that reflects its dysfunction.
Yeah.
Or its inability to empathize with you as as a sentient being. And you are trying to repair those problems. So you are almost it's an inverse stress track.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that if that's what's good to your game.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, editing the four actions is an important thing that you can do.
Absolutely.
In iHunt, we didn't edit them directly. We still have the same 4: attack, defend, overcome, create an advantage. The difference is the way that we execute them and the way that we word them. It's subtly different.
Mm-hmm.
But it is different, just in the presentation. And I think that does actually work at the table with people who have read the book and who are experienced with it. It is subtle. But subtle's okay. You can do subtle. Okay, so that's skills.
Joe says that not a big fan of the pyramid, that when they run long-term games, they use columns. Again, that's all in the Fate book. There's a couple of different ways to deal with skill tracks and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not sure which way to go, hit us up.
One thing that we did, and it's not a player-facing rule, but the rules for creating monsters in iHunt, instead of using the pyramid, we use just a straight-up number of points.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because most monsters don't have enough skills to cover that. They generally have a few skills that are very high, but they don't have a whole bunch of skills that are very low. The Shambling Dead, they're not going to have academic, they're not going to have occultist, they're not going to have hacker, maker, socialite, all of these skills. They're basically going to have fighter, athlete, maybe survivor. So we just pulled those points together. And that's just an intentional choice that we made. There are a lot of ways that you can do it. The important thing, like the big takeaway, I think the most important thing that you can take away is whatever choices you make them with intent. Know why you made those choices and be willing to design around that reason. And that's really the reason why the first step in this process is identifying what you want in your game. Like what you think your game is and what you want out of it. Because no matter what comes down the pipeline, what part of the process you are designing your Fate game, knowing that and being able to use that as a sort of a pathfinder, a way to guide you in your process, that will save you a lot of time and it'll make your game feel a lot more focused. Ultimately, that's going to be a lot more of an interesting game. So, next, stunts. Stunts are the other big way that Fate characters are sort of identified in a mechanical sense. It differentiates them. It makes them interesting. Um, Fate Core has a pretty simple, relatively straightforward system for creating stunts. The one thing that I think is really interesting about Fate in the stunts is that one of the basically the three things that Fate stunts do is break the rules,
Yep.
and that's a great catch-all. There's been a lot of discussion about what that can mean and everything, but like I think that it's interesting that it can do one of these two things or one of these three things or whatever, but then also it can break the rules. So it can also just fucking fuck with things. I like that. And yeah, thank you, Dwam. You caught that pun. I'm really actually really glad. I was hoping that someone would. I was gonna feel bad if nobody did.
It's good that it won't even be forgiven either.
Yeah. So stunts. Stunts basically they're special moves, right?
Right.
In wrestling, they're the thing that the character does that everyone sort of like everyone's waiting for.
And I think an important thing to consider with stunts is that is, on some level, that is your player telling you what they want their character to look cool doing.
Yeah.
And what they want their character to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when a player puts down a stunt, they're saying, hey, I want this to happen.
Yeah.
I want on camera everybody to see me do this thing.
Yeah. And if you use Fate as written, if you don't even fuck with the stunts at all, it works that way very well.
Yeah.
It works fine. If you're doing any sort of modification, obviously you need to communicate that. But I think that the best way that you can sort of communicate your world and in your sort of vision is by giving sample stunts. It's one of the reasons why we use a lot of sample stunts in the iHunt zines.
Yeah.
Because even though like a stunt can give like a +2 to a limited action, that's not very inherently exciting, but showing how that applies in your world is. Even though it works mechanically the same as any number of other stunts that give +2 in a conditional circumstance, the way that you present that and the way that you deliver that as an example, I think is hugely important.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's one of the things that we do, and I think that if you are using the stunts to emphasize your setting, to emphasize your game and your world, that doing a few samples is hugely valuable. Stunts can cover anything that makes characters special. In a game of D&D, which is of course topical for Francita's example, stunts can do magic, stunts can do class features. Stunts can do all kinds of great shit.
Have you ever been frustrated about D&D's supposed priest class? That like you can have like one thing that like a 1% of a 1% that shows that your priest character isn't crazy and that there's actually gods backing them up. Well, you can replace it with a stunt that's just like, nope, God's on your side.
Mm-hmm.
So like you can also use it to fill in the things that it felt like the game that you were playing didn't focus enough on.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're playing a game that's like, Vampire with the serial numbers filed off, and you want, I don't know, what didn't that do very well? It's supposed to be about.
Wait, which? I'm sorry, which?
Vampire, for example.
Oh, Vampire. Well, honestly, reconciling humanity.
Sure.
It never did that well. I did the best I could in Vampire the Requiem 2nd Edition to make it interesting, and that like got mixed results. I think that some people really love that system and some people don't. But I think that reconciling with humanity, especially in Vampire the Masquerade, not as much in Requiem, but in Vampire the Masquerade, it was never addressed in any meaningful way.
So that's a place you can use a stunt to make your version of the game what you want it to be.
Yeah, still to this day, I see people arguing about what like failing and succeeding in humanity roles actually means, because it's never been consistent or interesting.
Yeah.
Stunts make it consistent and interesting. It makes it very straightforward, very direct, and it explains what it is. And you should be able to intuit from a stunt how it's supposed to work.
Stunts are also a really great place for characters to opt out of players to opt out of things that they don't want to engage with.
Yeah.
So if everybody wants to play a really gritty street level game of cyberpunk, but one of your players has trouble with food insecurity in real life,
Yeah.
and they just simply do not want to engage with that part of the aspect, cool. They have a stunt that they're never experiencing that.
Yeah.
And it does X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, they just win there. They don't have to worry about it.
If you're having a game that has a lot of romantic back and forth, and like that's supposed to be kind of a part of a thing, but maybe you're using some skills to reflect that, but you have one player who's like totally on board with everybody else doing that, but they don't want their character involved with that.
Mm-hmm.
They have a stunt that they're iron-hearted, and it's totally off the table.
Yes. Now the one sort of limitation is that stunts have as far as like power level goes, they're pretty standard. You can make them bigger in your game, like if you want to do like a superhero game and you want to make the stunts big deal, fucking special attacks or whatever, you can do that. But by and large, and by default, stunts have direct limitations. They're very clear in what they do from a mechanical standpoint. And they sometimes are a little bit stronger if they are engaged with fate points, sure. But they are limited. And there's sort of like two solutions to this if you need more than that. And the first is stunt trees. Stunt trees are sort of tiered, progressively stronger stunts. Some games have those, and some Fate designers have sort of beaten that drum. I'm going to be adding them as an optional rule for iHunt in the Season 2 book, for example.
Watch for that.
It's going to be really good, yeah. But the other solution is to not use stunts for everything. The other solution is to use what we call extras, which we'll get to in a moment. But, so, Francita, tell me a little bit about how people engage with magic and, like, special skills in your game.
Okay. So the character that I posted in the chat. So I wanted to exemplify this particular character because this is a character that took a level in a spellcasting class, even though they are a fighter, because they had a problem that was an inherently D&D problem, that they never got close enough to the bad guy to do something.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that sucked.
Yeah.
Everyone else had magic. Everyone else had some sort of way of engaging with the bad guys that they wanted to punch, for example, and she couldn't because she was too far away.
Yeah.
And I think that is actually not going to be like so much of a problem with Fate.
Yeah.
So I think for this character, we might just like ignore that spellcasting ability that she had.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessary. The other characters have specific spells that they have. Even though they can choose from a huge list, they always choose the same ones.
Yeah.
So there is like really specific. They're mostly specific, like specifically for damage. The ones that they have, which are not really used that often. To be honest.
Yeah. Well, if that's the case, then I think that like if they do intend on using them, then it's probably fine to just do stunts. Like if it's just damaging stuff, then I think that's usually fine. It doesn't sound like you use a lot of like like charm person or whatever like that. So I think that you've got everything covered with just stunts, right? Yeah. Okay. So you're pretty good off, and this is I think this is a good important point, um, because D&D is a fucking meaty ass system. It has all kinds of garbage in it, and the fact that we don't have to get too far into extras here is sort of shows that strength. We don't need to give it so much granularity because that's not what her game is about, and the way that they've been playing it doesn't demand that. So all of that other stuff is just wasted space. So we don't need it in the Fate iteration of this game. We just don't need it. That's fine. Okay, next.
If you can trim something, do trim it.
Yes, always. Okay, next. Stress and consequences. Aha, I get it. The slide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get it?
Stress,
That's my boy.
stress and consequences. How many and how gritty? So basically, the way that your stress and your consequences work, they're your hit points in the game, basically. But they're also a sort of measure of narrative value for the character. And the default system works pretty well. It works fine, I think. I strongly prefer the version that is in Fate Condensed. It's very similar to the version that is in iHunt. The iHunt Player's Guide has a slightly different version of the stress system in it. It's not substantially different in any big way. But the way that it works in Fate Core is you have two tracks. You have of stress. You have mental and physical stress. It's like 3 boxes, and then 2 more if you have a skill at a 1, and 4 more if you have a skill at a 3 or higher. Pretty simple, pretty easy. In the iHunt Player's Guide, I changed it to you just add the skill rating to the stress boxes, which is just easier math at the table, I think. And it's a little bit more granular. I found that when I was doing monsters and when I'm making iHunt characters, I tend to have a lot of characters with skills at 1 and 3 because those are the big milestones and the like sort of speed bumps for skills. So I don't know. I think it works better that way, but it's not a big deal either way. What you do with stress and consequences, if you leave them, again, be intentional, but if you just leave them as they are, they generally work for most action-adventure games. They don't really need a lot of modification. If you want to simplify your game, add the tracks. Yeah, add the tracks together, turn them into a single stress track. My advice would be to take the one stress track, multiply it by 1.5. So if someone has 6 boxes, they get 9 boxes. Because normally in Fate you want to divide up your stress and play with it however you want.
I would say though, like the thing about having at least 2 stress tracks is it does give you a little bit more room for playing with things like stunts. Because you can have things where your stunt is limited to 1 stress track.
Yeah.
You can have stunts or extras or whatever that let your characters convert 1 stress track to another. There's it does give you some playing room that you might not want to dismiss too quickly.
Yeah, I do absolutely agree, and that's the reason iHunt even has it. It's just because it's more fun to play with.
I was really thinking about dropping Flat Pack down to 1, but then I realized no, I want a little room to play.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, you should get Titan Hunt. It's a really good game. I did layout for it, and I think it looks really cool. So definitely do that. Consequences are I like consequences in action adventure games better than like hit points because they demand that you explain.
It becomes narrative.
Yeah. In every iteration of D&D, of World of Darkness, of whatever, they're always like, don't just say you take 3 damage. Say they jump across and swing the bloody blade and blah 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 blah. Like, but there's nothing really making you do that other than the guideline, and the guideline doesn't really give you a lot of room for asking yourself, what does this mean?
And it doesn't support it in any way.
It doesn't.
The narrative doesn't get changed.
Well, and what these things mean is like, it's not just a fiat, like arbitrary fiat thing, but it's an arbitrary fiat thing that people use as a bludgeon to shut down criticisms of the game system. Oftentimes I'm like, okay, well, like how many times can your fighter get hit in the head with a battle axe before he dies? And people are like, well, but hit points don't actually mean that you're getting hit. Hit points actually are like stress points, and like you dodge and dodge and dodge and you take the wound and it doesn't matter, and then eventually the final blow is the one that matters. And then I'm like, okay, so then why does cure severe wounds cure that? Like, wouldn't it cure severe wounds? Well, yeah, but it's an abstracted system. Like, no, it's a bad system. It doesn't. It's an incoherent system.
Tell me how your system reflects my character getting their arm broken.
Yeah.
And if you can't tell me that, then maybe there's something missing here.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know, and I feel like that kind of thing removes a lot of the gravity. Like you can't, like the assassination of John F. Kennedy would not happen in a game of D&D. It just doesn't happen. Like it doesn't happen because he has too many hit points.
Well, and it leaves. I mean, narratively, it takes you out of a situation where you can't disable things. You have to kill them.
Yeah, you do.
There's no granular. There's no like, okay, well the orc, I'm making a called shot. I'm gonna break his kneecap.
Yeah.
And that's a really brutal thing to do. But I know if I do that to this orc, then that's gonna ground him, and that might give me a situation where I can now talk to the rest of them to stop.
Yeah.
Without the and how that works in Fate is I've done enough harm. He takes a consequence. And that consequence includes his broken kneecap.
Yeah.
And now I can compel, when I do a social roll to get him to calm down or whatever, I can compel that wound.
Yeah.
And he is incentivized to take a fate point and to accept my offer to end the fight.
Yeah.
Well, I can't do that in D&D.
And a character is more likely, like when I'm running a game in Fate, if I know that the next turn I might get a severe consequence, I am going to think, well, maybe I should get the fuck out of here. Maybe I should withdraw. Whereas in D&D, if I know that I'm going to survive the next turn, I might go down to a low number of hit points, but I'm going to survive. Then I'm going to keep engaging.
Right.
Basically, 1 hit point and 40 is the same thing because you get to act anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you know, over the years, various games have, like, changed this a little bit, you know. In D&D, you have like bloodied status and stuff like that, or at least in 4th edition, which is good. But like you have that, but and then like in World of Darkness, you have some penalties for wounds and stuff like that, but they're not really meaningful. The fact that you have to think about what a consequence is and word it because it's an aspect, that's a big deal. So considering what the consequences are. In your game is important. I don't think that most games need you to modify them very much. The mild, moderate, severe consequence that exists on the normal Fate character sheet works for most games because it does translate very well to mental stress. It does work for like reputation damage and like a political game or whatever. So you can do that. It works just fine. If you want to modify them, of course, give consideration to why and what it means. But really, like think about what consequences are in your game and what they can deliver.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big deal. Let's see.
Joe says, I don't think most people do want D&D. I mean, yeah.
I think deep down, a lot of them don't, and that's one of those problems because you know, if you were there for the beginning of the conversation that we had about problematic media and things, it's a lot of the resistance isn't because they want that thing, it's because they've been taught to identify with it.
Yeah.
And they can't give up that piece of their identity. And so they're doing something that is kind of like, and not, I don't want to say harmful in like the harm sense, but like it's harmful to their potential for fun. In that they're doing the thing that is not ideal for what they're doing. So I don't know.
A better world is not possible.
Yeah, better world is not possible. That's right. So let's see. Extras. extras are things that are not the rest of the character sheet, basically. Um, in a lot of games that are built on Fate, like Dresden Files, extras include things like monster powers and spells and stuff. Um, the thing about extras is that there's no real hard rules for them. They can be a lot of things. There's there's a whole discussion to be had, and I think this maybe it's another stream. But extras can be sort of micro characters built off of the character. They can be like very complex appendages. Um, and I think that there's something interesting and compelling about that, but it depends on the game that you're playing, the game that you want to play, and the experience that you want to deliver. You can have an extra that is like literally a sword that has a whole character sheet. Like it's got a personality, it's got aspects of its own, it's got stunts of its own, skills of its own, all of that. You can do all of those things.
In fact, do that. That's
like
fun.
Yeah, it is. It's a really fun way to go. One of the things that I always found compelling about old D&D books is that there were like swords that have personalities, and that could like talk to you, and they could like resist you, influence you, and that sort of thing. I always found that really interesting, but like the actual support material for them did not deliver. Like it didn't really explore how fucking interesting and cool that idea was. Um, However, building a character, building the thing as a character is a thing that Fate inherently supports, and it's very cool. So just by the existence of that rule, like by the existence of the way that you can do that with extras in Fate, it is inherently like bolder and more fun. You can do all kinds of cool stuff with it.
When I remember, I always played Rangers
Mm.
because I wanted a pet.
Yeah.
And I always wanted a pet. And the only way to do that was by playing a ranger.
Yeah.
There was literally no other option.
Yeah.
In Fate, I have a pet. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's just a thing.
Yeah. So let's see. So extras. Most of the time, whenever I see people designing Fate hacks or even full Fate games, and they use extras, most of the time the things that they use, they make into extras are basically just stunts, and they should be. So like you can just whittle things down into stunts, and like we were talking about with Francita's game earlier, most of the spells that she has are just stunts. So why not just make them stunts? You don't need to build that extra layer of complexity unless you really want it, and unless it delivers something interesting for the game.
I love me some, Joe says, I love me some extras, anything from cool shirts to a whole pirate ship with crew. Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the cool thing about Fate is that the cool shirt and the pirate ship full of crew, they can literally be mechanically the exact same thing.
And it's fine.
And it works. It's beautiful. I love it. I love it so much. We did not use extras in the player-facing rules of iHunt because they weren't necessary. They are in the monster-facing because we have 3 types of monster things. We have features, gifts, and powers. Or powers, sorry, features, gifts, and banes.
Yeah.
Which are complicated. They're actually probably the most complicated part of the game. There's not even a probably. They're definitely the most complicated part of the game. So yeah. Oh, Ash, have a good night.
Thank you so much for hanging out. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. So that's extras. I think that we could do an entire presentation on extras and talking about those, and so maybe sometime down the line we can do that.
Yeah.
Francita, is there anything in your D&D game that hasn't been covered that you think needs to come up as far as like player-facing rules go?
Yeah. How, like, if there comes like a conflict, how do you handle initiative?
Okay. Well, initiative is there's 2 ways to handle initiative. You can just key it on a skill. That's I think the default way in Fate Core. The other way that you can do it is that you decide what's important in your game, and you focus on that. You decide what you want to reward. In your case, it sounds like making friends with shit is the thing that you want to do, which is very similar to like Doctor Who, the RPG.
So you might borrow from Doctor Who by saying, um, okay, speakers. What is it? Speakers, doers,
and then shooters.
and shooters is the last one or whatever.
Yeah.
So basically, you decide which are the things that you want to see prioritized, like being friendly and making friends.
Yeah.
And deleting bots. I don't want to be famous. Yes, thank you. Talkers, runners, doers, shooters. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So if you're talking, you get to go first. Running, if you're fleeing, you get to go second. If you're doing stuff, like if you're building, creating things, whatever, then you get to go next. And then the last people who go are shooters. So if you're a combatant, you go last. Because that's the least important thing in this game, and it's the thing that we don't want people to be doing. In iHunt, it is the bold. The fortune favors the bold. So it's in a way it's sort of the opposite of the Doctor Who set. So in iHunt, if you are the first one to say I'm fucking hitting them, I'm doing it. Like I am being bold and I'm taking action. You go first. And then if it's contested between the players and the director, the players go first. The hunters always get to go first if they want to intervene.
Here's a fun one for if you're sitting around a table, if you're physically with your character players, for example, you count to 3. 3, 2, 1. Everybody points at someone. Whoever's got the most fingers pointed at them, that's who goes first.
Yeah.
And then you go 3, 2, 1, and everybody points. And they leave it out. There's a lot of different ways. The fact that Fate doesn't give you one, it means that you can borrow from other places.
Well, Fate's basic thing is is you can compare skills.
The popcorn initiative is my favorite. Yeah.
And then that's in Fate Condensed. It's also mentioned in Fate Core, I believe. I don't know, but it's the default in iHunt.
And it's my favorite thing as a teacher too.
And basically the way that works is that you figure out who gets to go first through those declarations. In iHunt, it is whoever is being the boldest, and then that person gets to pick who goes next, and then that person gets to pick who goes next. And the interesting sort of strategy there, which I think is a fun one, is that if you push your opponents back to the end of the roster, then they essentially get 2 actions in a row unimpeded. So they can make different strategic and tactical choices based on that. So it's actually really disadvantageous to
leave them at the end.
Yeah. So there's actually a good benefit to letting your enemies go first, or at least before everyone goes.
Dwam, what's the Marvel Heroics?
Marvel Heroics is basically the exact same.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Cam Banks basically wanted Lenny Balsera's initiative system from Fate to be in Marvel Heroic, and so it is. Yeah, it's pretty much exactly what I just said.
Oh no, it's okay. I know the delay is always weird. I was just double checking.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's in Marvel Heroic, and it's really good. It works really well. I've never had a problem with it.
Yeah, Magnus, I think hearing what the Doctor Who initiative was definitely also for me one of those moments of like, oh, yeah, I can do anything.
You could just do that.
I can tell my players exactly how I want them to play the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the strength of this type of design.
Francita, because you have a game that's based on friendship or whatever, you could consider an initiative system that's based on like a popular vote.
You could, yeah.
You could do something like, okay, everybody, quick, who do you want to go first? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think something similar to what we've described and the Doctor Who system, I think would work really well for you, Francita.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
And you can use the popcorn initiative with any game. It doesn't have to be as long as it's not. So you're supposed to reveal those one at a time.
Oh, okay. I know, but I couldn't. They're all points of discussion. They're all things that are worth discussing together. Okay, so fate points. Fate points. This isn't something that you usually need to fuck with a lot, but it's worth thinking about. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of important to consider. So fate points are your player's control over the game, And there is a certain amount of that you want to ask yourself, like how much control do you want them to have? And if they have a lot of fate points, then they have a lot of control. And if what the fate points can do is more powerful, then they're gonna have more control. Some games need that, some games don't. If you're going from a game like D&D and you like that sort of play to find out what happens, but don't empower the players that much, then you can whittle down what fate points do. You can just turn them into boosts.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's not the way I would do it, but like that is the priority of certain types of game design. In a game like D&D, you have like inspiration points as well.
Yeah.
So it's a similar idea. Let's see. So the fate point economy. A good game of Fate, you're always having fate points change hands. The question of how often is important to just think about. I don't necessarily think that you need to modify rules a lot usually, but at the table you are controlling the fate point economy through things like compels and invokes. And if you want the fate point economy to slow a little bit, then you use fewer compels and invokes. I don't use a ton of compels when I run games. I tend to use like 1 or 2 per player per game session. And it works fine. Like they just work off of their refresh, not a big deal. If they want to drive a little bit more by compelling themselves, they can do that. That's fine. That's cool. Then what do fate points say? Again, they're about narrative control. And what that means to your game is important to think about and to work around. In default fate, they mean that you can invoke. Mm-hmm. They mean that you can compel other people, mm-hmm. and that you can introduce a scene element. Mm-hmm. Those are all relatively benign things. Like invokes are small bonuses to dice rolls. Mm-hmm. Compels do drive drama and action. And then introducing scene elements tends to not be a big deal because there's not a lot you can do with that. Like, you can't contradict what's already there.
I would almost always like kind of disclude that rule and just say really what you want to do is create an aspect instead, create an advantage.
Yeah, most of the time it's creating an aspect.
Yeah, because saying that something is true about the setting it's fine, but it doesn't engage with the economy because there's no compels on it, there's no invokes on it. So it's like, okay, cool.
In the I Hunt Player's Guide, I completely removed that. I did not include introduce a scene element.
Yeah, it won't be in the flat pack.
Yeah, because I would prefer people just create advantage.
Mm-hmm. Which is a choice you can make.
Yeah, but that's it. Like, what do the fate points say? In iHunt, they don't really say introduce a scene element, except in a few cases. Yeah. And in the iHunt Player's Guide, they don't at all. Like, they don't even say that. That's not a thing that we expect players to do. We expect them to be using their fate points for invokes and compels and dilemmas, imperils.
However, I have a fucking horse now is a big design decision.
However, I have a fucking horse now is an advantage.
Yeah.
Like, you create that horse by creating an advantage.
Yeah.
I have a fucking horse now. Pretty simple. And then it has mechanical weight because it has it is an aspect, and it has free invokes.
Yeah. Joe, the reason that Mythical is getting the sound before you is because they're better. You're closer to Skynet being upstairs. Yeah, that's right. That sounds right. Horses are an aspect. Horses are a character.
Yeah, horses are a character, or they can be an aspect, or they can even just be a boost.
Or they can be a boost.
Like that's the beauty of Fate, is they can be whatever you need them to be.
Right.
Which is pretty cool. So yeah, like I think that considering what fate points say in your game is super important. There are a lot of ways that you could approach that, but I don't think that most of the games it's necessary. I didn't really like the way that create a scene element works in iHunt, so I just erased it. I just didn't fucking bother.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. And that's sort of like what fate points do too.
You know where that's good for? That's good for if you're doing a really loosey-goosey, no pre-described setting, and you're kind of building the setting and the characters as you're playing the game, which is kind of what the Fate book itself encourages you to do.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing something like that, then the creative scene pieces, the spend a fate point and the Galactic Empire doesn't like the color purple, that makes more sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you are world building at the same time.
Yeah.
If you are playing a game with its own existing world, it's probably a lot less necessary.
Yeah, but personally, I think that players should be able to do that kind of world building at the table regardless.
Yeah, and Create an Advantage covers that, so I think you're good to go. Unless you have make anything shiny. Well, yeah, because the shinies are special, so that.
Yeah. So the yeah. What like?
You have a horse now. His name is Butt Stallion.
In a game where stunts tend to require fate points because they're powerful, that is its own thing too. I saw someone do a superhero style fate hack where most of the superpowers, like the big deal stuff, this saves me from death, I resurrect or whatever, they use as a fate point. And that can work really well, but then you have to acknowledge that that's one of the things that fate points can do in your world.
Yeah.
So it's worth considering what that means and like how that resonates with the fate point economy and whatever. In Amaranthine Fate, which I've been sort of like braining in the back of my mind, one of the things that fate points will be able to do is give you a flashback.
Yeah.
You'll be able to do a flashback to a past life.
Right.
And so you do a short sub scene.
Tom mentions that like having that rule kind of existed in the early editions of the game and whatever to tell players that was a thing they could do.
Correct.
And that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's in Spirit of the Century for a reason. Like it is valuable, but I don't really use it. Like it's not a thing that matters to me, so it's a thing that I deprioritize a lot. I really like letting players build the world as I'm playing.
Yeah.
That's just the style of game that I like, so I encourage people to do that anyway.
Right.
And I don't require fate points for it because I don't really want them spending fate points for it.
Yeah.
I want them doing it casually.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay, your game is they're small gods. Absolutely, that is a good place for it. I think that it's a good avenue for using fate points, but you just have to consider what that means for your fate point economy. And like, do you want there to be more fate points to accommodate that? Do you want fate points to be scarce because of it? Whatever. And and a lot of indie circles we do assume that we do more world building and stuff. Like it is a thing. And in a lot of ways, the indie scene evolved through games like Fate and through Powered by the Apocalypse and everything like that. And I think that as the indie scene grew, so did the needs of games like Fate. So this iteration of Fate, iHunt, does not prioritize that thing that we did need 10 years ago. I think that it is testament to the way that the games and the stories grew. That we were able to modify that and like the sort of the world around it. iHunt is a Fate game for 2019. It is for 2020. Spirit of the Century is for a different time. You can still play it, of course, but you're going to notice that a lot of the design conceits are older, and we have moved past them and we have changed. So really,
post Fate game. That's right.
Yeah, you can be like a real OSR Fate fanatic. Like I only play old school. I call them tags. I don't use invoke. I use tag.
I use tag. It's just easy.
Wow, you're old school.
I don't do it on purpose.
I tag my aspects.
I don't know.
Yeah, Sean does that too. I didn't know where it was coming from.
It comes from Spirit of the Century and Dresden Files.
Magus only plays Fudge. Yeah.
That we stopped using the term tag for Fate with Fate Core actually.
Sure.
We just have invokes and repels.
I'm behind then. That's fine.
Yeah, don't be old.
I can't help it.
Yeah, so that's those. And then, so story aspects. Story aspects are a thing. These are less on the game design side and more on the execution side, but especially when
She totally did just tell me not to be old. Like I have any control over it.
yeah, I did. That's what I told her not to be old. Um, so Spirit of the Century is an eye-opening game. Like at the time, I remember when I first got it. I remember I got it at I actually got it at Metatopia. We were there and we met Rob Donahue.
Yeah.
And we bought it because of his recommendation. Um, and it was very eye-opening. It was a really, really great game.
Yeah.
Really fun book. Really loved it. Really wonderful. So anyway, story aspects. It's less on the game design side, and more of the. I think that it's doubly important to consider story aspects like situational and scene aspects whenever you're adapting a game that already exists, because they are probably your strongest avenue for focusing and filtering down what that game experience was into the form that you want to see at the table. Um, it's easy to fall into the folly of, okay, well, I had this D&D campaign and now I'm going to be playing it in Fate, and then all of the players around the table are like, okay, well, I'm casting Magic Missile. Like they really sometimes will expect to do things that are in the old game, just because they did exist there. Um, Instead of disallowing that, and instead of like sort of poo-pooing that, you are using story aspects to assert what the game is. Instead of whittling down what it's not, it is focusing what it is.
Can you give us like a more specific example of that? Because I'm not sure that I'm following.
Sure, of course, of course. So in a scene where there are giants, because Francita's playing a D&D game where they are making friends with giants.
Yeah.
Um, in a game like that, if you just convert it and you just throw people in, like assuming that, let's assume that hypothetically Francita had not run the game already and she's just doing it fresh.
Yeah.
And it's just a D&D game. People might assume that the way that the game is to be engaged is the same as the D&D in general.
I'm attacking it.
So I'm attacking it. I'm going to attack the giant, whatever. But if you use those scene aspects to set mood,
Mm-hmm.
and to basically infer how you want the game to be played, like, there's mood music or whatever.
Yeah.
Then you are asserting what you want to happen, and typically the players will oblige. So your scene aspects might be like, oh God, the sounds of birds chirping in the background.
Mm-hmm.
That's non-confrontational by and large. Like, people aren't going to assume that this is an action scene.
Well, I think you can do something just as funny as saying the NPC, one of his aspects has a great smile.
Yeah.
And as soon as you do something like that, well then, they're like, well, okay, he's got a great smile, so we're supposed to engage with him socially, I guess?
Yeah.
They might be giants, we don't know. Well, that's terrible.
Yeah. So they basically, these things do a lot of heavy lifting, these scene aspects, or story aspects. They do a lot of heavy lifting because they hold the player's hands and they guide them towards the candy. So in Francita's example, I think that using story aspects to communicate what your game is about is like the single most important thing you can do. Mm-hmm. You even without changing a single thing out of Fate, without focusing at all on what you had to modify and adapt, story aspects are super important to sort of make that work. And Dwam, do you mean I can define my character without spending 3 sessions spending points in GURPS? Technically, I think that you can. Yeah, I think that you can define your character without that.
We've never seen it done.
Yeah, we've never seen it done. Like, we're Palladium stands here. Aspect is always petting a dog. Yeah, there you go. See? I wouldn't want to hit them.
As much.
Like, they could be, I don't know, a Republican or something. I don't fucking know. Republicans have dogs sometimes. So that's the basics of aspects. Like I don't think there needs to be much focus on that. Okay, let's see.
I guess one way that you can think about your story aspects there is like mood music.
Yeah.
If you have a scene in a movie where like Marvin Gaye is playing in the background, well, you've implied something about this scene.
Yeah.
If you have, I don't know, the soundtrack for The Matrix happening, that's the same scene is going to be feel very different.
Correct.
And you can do these things. Your scene aspect could be a song cue.
Yeah.
There's no reason you can't do that.
Yeah.
So, like, by all means, try that out.
Yeah.
Forrest, I'm kind of very similar. Riffs. Oh, I'm damaged.
So one of the things that I find that is worth considering in Fate, and this is sort of the last part of this presentation here, is that antagonists tend to work differently in Fate than they work in other games on account of the mechanics being different. So it is worth considering what that means. Your antagonists, should they be lethal? Like, what level of lethality? And lethality isn't always a physical thing either. Like, should they be able to shut people down and take them out of the scene? And if so, how easily? And how much should they be able to sort of seize power in the scene? And conversely, how lethal should you be able to, or the players be able to be? Should they be able to take out the antagonists very simply? In Fate, if you are playing Fate just straight according to the rules, even moderately clever player should be able to stack up some aspects and take out damn near anyone in like 1 or 2 rolls. This is a thing that is true in every Fate game. In Dresden Files, basically, like, there's not a fucking ancient vampire that you can't annihilate by being smart and doing a few, creating a few advantages.
Because the story is not in that final fight. The story is the build up to that final fight.
Yes. Creating advantages should be interesting, and that should make it worth it. But it is worth considering, like, how are you going to work around that? Do you need recurring villains who can't be just taken out? If you do, how are you going to do that? Like, are you going to use minion rules that put them up as human shields? You can do that. Are you going to make it so, they have extra consequences that they can suck up? You can do that. Do you not care? If you don't care, don't give them stress. Just let them go straight to consequences. It's fine. Whatever you got to do. And conversely, antagonists should be able to do the same things to the players if you're kind of a mean GM or director. What limitations do you want to place on them? Do you want to give them their own pools of fate points? The default rules in Fate is that, they will have a small pool of their own if they're a big deal speaking character. Otherwise, they will, the GM or director has a pool that they draw from that they can use to invoke and compel if they need to.
I had to allow a fucking gen. Apparently.
What?
The Autobot said a fucking gen was.
Oh, because fucking, yeah.
Yeah. Silly.
Yeah. 22 hours on a combat. So my record on combat was BattleTech. But it was actually a really interesting one for stupid anecdote because I'm at the end of the presentation.
Yeah.
We had a very long combat that actually took 3 sessions to complete in BattleTech, which is actually really, 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 really difficult because it's a miniature war game basically. And so we had to draw. We didn't have, this is before camera phones were a thing. We had to draw the battle map and we had to put everyone in their positions, and that way the next time we could recreate the map because we couldn't just leave it for a week between games. Our parents would be angry. So we would reassemble the map, continue, and then reassemble the map and continue, and we finished it. It sucked. It was so fucking annoying. So what I ended up doing was, for the future of the game, we sort of lampshaded it, and we started playing Mech Warrior between turns of the combat. And eventually we just ditched the battle map except for like narrative purposes. We had it there, but we wouldn't use the BattleTech rules. But between every like volley of missiles, we would have full conversations and we would have full cutaways and flashbacks and stuff, to the point where we had an entire sort of campaign of BattleTech that was a single fight that I think took like, I want to say it was like 20 sessions, because the campaign was not about the fight. It was about everything that led up to the fight. It was about the character relationships and the politics that drove that fight to exist.
Yeah.
Like we pretty much knew who was going to win when we started. But like that was one of my early experiments in game design, is that I hated BattleTech so much, even though I liked theoretically playing it and I liked like engaging in that universe, that I built a game that like sort of, I don't know, a meta game within it.
Yeah.
And it was really fun. It was really good. Don't get me wrong. It was one of the best campaigns that I've ever run. But it was not BattleTech by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, Dwam, hit us up with your question. We've got some time.
Yeah, please. We do have time. We have like 15 minutes,
I
and
was
we're
gonna
done.
Say, the longest combats I've ever been were always in fucking LARPs. They were inevitably in LARPs. 4 hours, 6 hours sitting around because people have stupid character sheets. No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah. Don't do that. And
wow, a 36 session game. Fate or anything sounds amazing.
I've had games that ran a little bit longer than that, I think. But yeah, LARP combats are stupid and bad. And like LARPs where combat is a mechanic and not like boffer weaponing or whatever. I get like if you're into boffer weapons, cool, like whatever. I'm not into that.
Yeah.
But like World of Darkness LARPs or whatever, I would rather die than do combat that like does that shit. Like it's really, 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 really bad. And there are entire cultures of LARPers that are obsessed with it, and I hate that so much. And like those people should feel bad, basically. That's the TLDR. And if you're into that sort of thing, like the World of Darkness LARPs or whatever, like there are entire groups of people who like fly across the country with the intention of getting locked in a room with a whole bunch of nerds for 8 hours, like throwing rock, paper, scissors to kill one character or whatever. Like, and they spend like thousands of dollars to do this. And I really, really, really want them to apologize to the world and like take a step back, basically.
Stop making the world bad.
Okay, so Dwam. All right, one of the things I really dislike about Fate is that it kind of feels like passing points around. There's no sense of progress or closure other than saying we stop here. Edge dice and selfies do address that. Okay, so Edge dice is like, it's very much an iHunt thing. It's very much about power differentials, and I really wanted to model how power differentials change in the moment. And so, yeah, I do think that those work very well. Selfies make it matter. Selfies make what you're doing like memorable, like in the literal sense, like you're literally acknowledging an experience that you had and making it codified and making it interesting and something that you can call back. I think that those are concepts that can carry into pretty much any game. There are things that I wanted to do in World of Darkness actually, but I was not able to. So they were things that like I thought were really, really important. And I do get what you mean. With Fate, like the progression is very boring and very stagnant. You play for a number of sessions and you're like, okay, I got a skill point. And like, okay, what does that mean? It means that I now have a skill at +3 instead of +2. That is kind of shitty to me. That's literally why selfies exist. Like they're in there because I wanted to like call back and be like, remember that time we did this? Huge deal. Because I absolutely agree with you. I think that the selfie system is definitely essential for a good game of Fate. Um,
I think another way that you can kind of like dodge the whole it doesn't feel like it's progress thing
mm-hmm.
or whatever. Um, and it's more GMing than it is whatever anything else. But like cut, we talk about this a lot. But like
Yeah.
cut your scenes short, keep moving, go on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Don't let anybody linger too long in one event or another. And if you're doing that effectively, then the movement will feel more real.
And so as far as fate points, just moving fate points around, as Dwam says, and as Kitty Cat Herder here mentions, yeah, you are basically passing it around. So that's another place where the edge is a big deal. The edge really, really, really does, like, sort of, it's a big, it's like it's a ball that's on fire, and you really have to keep it moving. And I think that that's a big deal. But as far as fate points go, you are kind of passing points around. Giving people things to spend them on instead of passing them back and forth is I think one way to alleviate that. I also think that there are ways that you can address that. For example, if you remove the create an advantage action, and instead you just only use fate points, and fate points do that one thing. Fate points create an advantage with a free invoke. That's it. Then you don't need to worry about using fate points for invokes, because they only derive from create an advantage. Then you're not passing those fate points around, you're spending them.
Another thing you can do that we did in ADX, which was our first voyage into Fate, was that like the GM doesn't have a natural supply of them.
Yeah.
The GM has to earn them by setting up scenes and doing things that are genre appropriate.
It's
and
basically like the principles in Apocalypse World.
Right. They have the GM has a list of things that they're supposed to do, and when they do those things, they are rewarded with a fate point, which brings it into the economy.
Yeah.
And if it's not already into the economy, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So that gives the GM player a thing that they're doing, which I think is fun. It's a fun challenge. So it's a little bit, a little bit more engaged for that particular player. And there's not an endless supply of fate points. There's only the fate points that exist.
Yeah.
And when you spend a fate point rather than giving it to somebody else, it's gone.
Yeah. It is a little bit like Doompool Dwam, yeah.
Yeah.
But the important thing is that it's Apocalypse World style GM principles or MC principles,
yeah.
Which is the single most important thing out of Powered by the Apocalypse. That is the thing that is the most fucking neglected in hacks and mods of Powered by the Apocalypse.
I agree.
It's the thing that nobody seems to do well, but it's the single most important thing out of Apocalypse World. Instead, they just fucking lampshade the same goddamn moves over and over. And yes, they do, and people do forget about it because they end up running things like basically like D&D, but they do it with Apocalypse World moves, and that is completely contrary to the design and the beauty and elegance of Apocalypse World. Which, fuck that entirely. So yeah, if you're doing an Apocalypse World hack, please, 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 please hammer those fucking home. And if you're doing an Apocalypse World hack and you do like a GM screen or a reference page or whatever, don't focus as much on the moves. Focus on the goddamn principles. Put those on their fucking GM screen. Put them on your goddamn reference sheets. Ugh.
Tell your GMs they have to tattoo them to their bodies.
Yeah, like if your GM isn't using them, like yell at them. Tell them to stop it.
Sneak into their house at night and write them on their arm.
And yes, it is likewise, Dwam. It is a thing that we can't erase from our design heads. I think that in a lot of ways, the GM principles in Apocalypse World are the first really elegant instance of classic GM advice that every fucking game has, but nobody really pays attention to. And the fact that they are there and they are proactive rules instead of limitations is huge. And why the fuck doesn't anyone grab onto that? Like, why isn't that a thing that we see more of in Apocalypse World games? Basically, it's because they're bad designers. Yeah, so sorry, I'm strongly opinionated. They are in the GM section, Rarebit. Yeah, they are. It's this if you're in the Apocalypse World PDF and you control if you control F Barth Fourth Apocalyptica, that is what you will find is the GM principles, because that's the important that's the thematic one, that is right there. But yeah, use GM principles. Use them. Fucking use them. Use them. Use them. Use them. Use them. Um, they are literally rules. That's the difference between those and GM advice, is that they are hard rules. They are things that you absolutely have to do to play Apocalypse World. And most of the time, whenever I play games of Apocalypse World that people are running, they ignore them. So we are not playing Apocalypse World. And yeah, like every time, like whenever I've been at conventions and I'll go to Games on Demand and I'll be like, oh, I want to play Monster Hearts, or I want to play Apocalypse World, or whatever, and I sit down and I play the fucking game and the GM doesn't do them, I am so disappointed every time, because that is what makes the game good. Like the interplay between the principles and the moves is what makes the games interesting, and if you have one of those things missing, the game falls apart, and it's not the game you're supposed to be.
And for that, like when we're talking about Fate, bring stuff from other games that you like into your Fate game.
Yeah.
Don't just don't leave anything behind that you think is really cool, or like if you're like playing D&D and you wish you had principles and you go over to Fate, throw them in. Why not?
Yeah. Well, and that's like that's the first step. That's the first step. Like whenever you take a look at your what you want to bring over into your game, into your Fate conversion, the first thing that you need to do is you need to ask yourself, what do I want to bring over? And if you're converting an Apocalypse World game into Fate, you should probably bring in your principles, or at least the ones that you want to see emphasized in your story. And I agree, Rarebit, the GM section is only read by the GM. It's the most important thing. You should put it in the first sections. I absolutely agree. I think that Apocalypse World suffers dramatically from bad organization and sort of wishful thinking in its organization. So it could be better presented. And I feel like because there's no numbers on the MC principles in Apocalypse World, a lot of people do gloss over them, and they do look at them as advice, even though they are explicitly rules. Let's see. I did that in my woke trans urban fantasy superhero game, brought over Apocalypse World principles. Yes, please. Like every game should do that now. Like unless you have a reason not to.
Yeah, I'm feeling compelled to write us one for iHunt.
I think that the playbooks should have principles in there, if only as a response. Like this is how you respond to this principle. So when the MC barfs forth Apocalyptica, you crawl around in it. Like
you run outside and roll around in it.
And in fact, I would love to see an Apocalypse World hack where the playbooks don't have normal player-facing rules. They only have responses to hard moves and the GM principles. I would love to see that in Apocalypse World hack. I think it would be the best Apocalypse World hack. I think it would be beautiful. I also think that the MC should have a playbook in Apocalypse World. I absolutely think that the MC and you could even do an Apocalypse World hack where there are multiple MC playbooks and the MC has to pick one, the way that the players have to pick their playbooks.
That would be kind of a play style.
Yes. And so your GM style is dictated by the limited number of principles and the limited number of hard moves that are in your MC playbook. And I think that if you did that, you could potentially have like one of the most compelling and one of the most powerful Apocalypse World hacks. I also do think, Kitty Cat Herder, I do think that the principles and the GM stuff, the hard moves and stuff, they should be in the player section. Although I don't think that there should really be a player section. I legit think that like Apocalypse World would benefit very, very, very much from having from integrating the MC into a player that has a series of playbooks, or even just one playbook, but that is, it is a part of the player facing rules because the MC is a player. Yeah, I saw that, Dwan, but I think that the execution is like a little weak. Um, I, I like the idea, I guess, but I think that it's a bad execution.
You should probably read what you're referencing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's Dwan was saying that Girl by Moonlight has one where you choose an MC playbook for the type of campaign that you want. The reason why that exists is more because of wishy-washy design. It's trying to encompass multiple types of magical girl stories, which is okay, I guess. But like, I think that the at that point you suffer from the lack of focus that we were talking about.
It doesn't work. We were playing Your by Moonlight, and it really doesn't work for a magical girl game. It's trying to be too. It's trying to be something else, not a magical girl game. It's very weird.
I agree. And when I read it, I was like, has this person really like watched much magical girl media, like, or they just like read the Wikipedia page? Like it seemed like a real superficial understanding of it, but that's like there's a lot it's either that or like
maybe too much. Like it could even be too much. Like the different genres and stuff of magical girl, it could just have confused the designer.
Yeah.
Into, like trying to do a lot of stuff.
Sometimes trying to over classify and over categorize that stuff can be a huge hindrance. It's a big problem. But yeah. Okay. So, that I hope that addressed Dwam's question, even with the tangent about Apocalypse World. And I hope that this was valuable to everyone in talking about where you can take things and turn them into Fate, and how you can take Apocalypse World rules and make Fate better.
Yeah.
So, it's like 9 our time.
I think so.
How's everyone?
Good.
Everyone's good? Did you pick up anything out of that, Francita? I know that like this is mostly stuff that you've considered, hopefully, but I hope that it was educational.
Yeah, of course. Yes, it really helped, and so I'm playing this Thursday supposedly, and I think we're going to be creating the characters.
Awesome.
Basically.
Good. If anyone has any thoughts about things that you would like to talk about, be they Fate, be they iHunt, be they game design in general, whatever, talk about it. Like, bring it up. Hit us up on Twitter. Let us know, and we will do presentation about it. Like, we will make it a topic, because I really like these. Like, I like brainstorming and sort of working through ideas.
So I think, just to give you guys kind of a heads up of what's coming up.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, we'll be doing our 60 or so percent.
Yeah.
Our special guest this week will be our kids.
Oh yeah,
we're gonna make games with our kids, because they're real smart, and it'll be real fun. And again, it's one of those things. If you see an 8-year-old help to design a game, we hope it will build your confidence to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's that easy. Okay. So that's Wednesday. Next Monday, I'm going to throw this out here. We don't have to do this, but one of the things, I think for the bolts part of things, I think we're going to do playing Fate. And helping other players get adjusted to Fate. I think
making the playing better.
Yeah. And how to, like, really play Fate in a way that's very enjoyable. And where the fun is, so that you don't go looking for it and not find it. Because I think that's a problem for players sometimes. They're looking for D&D's version of fun, and they're not finding it, so they get frustrated.
Yeah.
My thought, let's talk about Session 0.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about Session 0 for the beginning part.
So
that's right.
next week, our Discourse section, we'll talk about Section 0. Best tools. Is it worthwhile? Is it a waste? Is it not a waste? Let's talk about that. Does that sound good to everybody? I know John, if he's around, is a big fan. Ian, no problem.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, we had a really good attendance tonight. So
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for coming. It was a
yeah,
big deal.
seriously, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful
And tell your
experience.
friends to come next week.
Seriously, yes. Like we bringing people in is a big deal. We're doing good stuff. All right, everyone. Good night. Matane.
Matane.
Bye.
Bye.